Chapter 802. Before they even entered the Taiyuan ruins, one faction had already left. The only ones left were the elite camp, later Qin and Wuji, Heaven's Wings, Immortal Abode, Zhou State, Hunter's Guild, Dharma Temple, Medicine Emperor's Pavilion, and Tangyuan. The next night, Yun Sheng took out some food from the beast's speech ring and ate a few bites. Because the night wind was cold, Sister Lan had a few male sorcerers, including Abandon, gather some firewood to start a fire. It's already the second day. If we delay any longer, we won't have enough food and water. No matter what, I have to try tomorrow. Lan was already impatient after waiting for a few days. She had wanted to try earlier, but Yun Sheng and Abandon had stopped her. Sister Lan, it's better not to be rash, Yun Sheng advised. At this time, Abandon had already gathered some firewood and started a fire beside Yun Sheng and Lan. This fire is not bad. Little wild cat, make room for this king. Yi Baiming stepped forward and squeezed his way to Yun Sheng's side. Yun Sheng rolled her eyes. There were so many empty seats around them. Yi Baiming could sit anywhere. Yet he insisted on sitting beside her. Abandon was fiddling with the fire. When Yi Baiming sat down, the firewood in his hand shook. A spark flew out and landed on Yi Baiming. Yi Baiming saw this and raised his eyebrows. He was unhappy. This brat was obviously looking for trouble. It's freezing. You don't mind this prince coming to get some warmth, right? At this time, Duguxiu butted in. Since Duguxiu came, Madame Chibai didn't want to be outdone and also came over. In front of a small bonfire, 5 or 6 people were crowded. Other than Yun Sheng and Lan, the others had strange expressions. They were filled with hostility, like a few hedgehogs squeezed together. The atmosphere suddenly became strange. The fire grew brighter and brighter, and a special fragrance floated out. Hey, what's that smell? Night Fox, is it from your body? Yun Sheng wrinkled her nose. She looked like a kitten, which made Yi Baiming laugh. It's the smell of firewood. This area is close to the sea, so the firewood is very humid. So I decided to chop down some trees, Abandon explained. Yun Sheng looked at the fire. Beside Qi, there was a pile of trees that were still green. After seeing the shape of the leaves, Yun Sheng jumped up as if her butt was on fire. Senior sister, let's go ahead and take a look. Lan He Yun Sheng hurriedly walked away. In front of the bonfire, the 3 men were still staring at each other. After about a quarter of an hour, Yun Sheng and Lan came back. Their eyes were bright. Found it. I think I've found the reason why the sea and skyline encountered evil. The reason lies in these leaves. We've all been poisoned, Yun Sheng said as she took out a handful of leaves. You're saying that these leaves are poisonous? Abandon and Madame Chibai both frowned. That's impossible. These leaves aren't poisonous at all, Abandon and Madame Chibai insisted. Abandon and Madame Chibai were both poison experts. Not only did they know how to use poison, but they were also very sensitive to poisons. Both of them were familiar with the books on poisons and poisonous herbs on the mainland. They clearly remembered that there were no records of these leaves. When they entered Mount Taiyuan, they had already carefully checked. There were no poisonous herbs or gas in this area. Along the way, their bodies didn't show any signs of being poisoned. That's because the gas released by these leaves can't even be considered poison. It's just a kind of miasma. Once people breathe it in, they'll be poisoned unknowingly. If people stay here for a long time, they might accidentally be poisoned or even go insane. Yun Sheng was a doctor. After she came to the Boundless Land, she learned a lot about poisons and herbs. However, she really didn't read about the attributes of these trees that grew in Mount Taiyuan. These trees didn't exist anywhere else on the mainland. They seemed to only grow in Mount Taiyuan. Yun Sheng was able to recognize these special trees because of a memory from her previous life. When Yun Sheng was still studying in the medical university, she had a good friend called Xiao Shui. After Yun Sheng graduated, she inherited a small clinic, while Xiao Shui went to Australia. She remembered that once, Xiao Shui and Yun Sheng had an overseas call. Xiao Shui even complained to Yun Sheng that she had become a lot more lazy ever since she went to Australia. This was because there were many eucalyptus trees planted in Australia. These eucalyptus trees would emit a special irritating smell. After smelling this smell, people would become lazy and sleepy easily. Yun Shang also just found out that the leaves of these trees were very similar to the eucalyptus trees in Australia. That was why she asked her sister Lan to confirm it. After checking, she found that the most planted trees in Mount Taiyuan should be a variant of the eucalyptus tree. Yun Shang directly named it Taiyuan eucalyptus. Although she didn't know whether the Penglai prince of Taiyuan eucalyptus deliberately planted this kind of Taiyuan eucalyptus, the smell of Taiyuan eucalyptus could make people and magical beasts hallucinate, and eventually lead to the occurrence of evil. Yun Shang was certain of this point. As long as you take the antidote and eliminate the toxins in your body, you can pass through the sea and skyline, Yun Shang said, pretending to be mysterious, and took out a few bottles of pills. The people who listened to Yun Shang's words were still half believed and half doubtful. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. This prince believes it. Yi Baiming supported Yun Shang. He didn't say anything and took a bottle of medicine. We also believe in Yun Shang, the people of the mainland elite camp echoed. Lan stepped forward and took a bottle of medicine. Du Guxiu looked deeply at Yun Shang and was about to speak. If it's really like what you said, then why wasn't the child that the village chief mentioned earlier not poisoned when he passed through the Taiyuan eucalyptus forest? Madame Qi Bai questioned. She just couldn't bear to see these people only have Yun Shang in their eyes. In her opinion, they were the ones who were possessed. They were all possessed by a kind of evil spirit called Yun Shang. Because the child is short, the Taiyuan eucalyptus trees grow in a higher position. When the wind blows at most, it can only sink a part of the smell. Adults will be affected, but the probability of children being poisoned is greatly reduced. Yun Shang finished speaking and made a gesture about a meter below. The eucalyptus tree's gas was relatively light, and because of the direction of the sea breeze, most of it floated above a meter. If one admitted to inhaling too much of the smell emitted by the Taiyuan eucalyptus and walked forward to the sea and skyline, the poison would take effect and they would lose their senses and fall to the bottom of the sea. This would explain why the village chief said that the child could enter the ruins, but the others couldn't. The villagers who entered the ruins of Taiyuan and didn't come out were most likely poisoned by the Taiyuan eucalyptus. The miasma was a slow-acting poisonous gas. At first, it didn't cause any harm, but after a long time, it would affect the person's visual nerves and slow down the body's reaction. Nonsense. Madame Qi Bai still didn't believe Yun Shang. Qi Bai, shut up. Du Guxiu reprimanded. Du Guxiu stared at Yun Shang. The latter's expression was calm, as if it was up to him to believe it or not. Chapter 803. Almost subconsciously, Du Guxiu chose to believe in Yun Shang. Yun Shang was a very cunning person. However, there was one thing about her. She never treated human lives like grass. This might be because she was a medical practitioner. Under the premise that there was no conflict of interest, no matter if it was an enemy or a commoner, they were all lives to her. Du Guxiu had once witnessed Yun Shang's medical skills with his own eyes. Her strange medical skills saved Yun Ba's life. This prince also believes in you. Give me the antidote. Du Guxiu also chose to believe in Yun Shang. Madame Qi Bai, who was beside him, felt as if she was slapped in the face. Her face and ears were red. If you want the antidote, pay up first. My antidote is priced at 10,000 purple gold. Seeing that we are allies, I will give you a 50% discount. I will give you an ally price of 5,000 purple gold for one antidote. There are a total of 10 of you, so just casually pay 50,000 purple gold. Yun Shang's words made Du Guxiu's face stiffen. The corner of Yi Baiming's mouth curled up into a big arc Lan Hachi, and the others also couldn't help but laugh. Women had always been the type to hold grudges. This woman called Yun Shang loved to hold grudges even more. Yun Shang would settle the matter of Dong Huangling, with Du Guxiu bit by bit. 50,000 purple gold was just an appetizer. Surnamed Yun, you are going too far. Seeing that Yun Shang still dared to ask for money, Madame Qi Bai became even angrier. If it wasn't for the fact that she was afraid of Du Guxiu getting angry, she would have already gone up and ripped Yun Shang's mouth apart. Du Guxiu took out an Empire's purple gold card. Yun Shang straightforwardly threw a bottle of medicine over. After seeing the medicine in the bottle, Du Guxiu's face stiffened again. Resisting the urge to scold, Du Guxiu kept the medicine. Yun Shang, can you sell some of your medicine to us as well? According to the ally price? Chang Bai and the others had already pricked up their ears to listen. Yun Shang's analysis was clear and logical. More importantly, Chang Bai, Bu Jiuxiao, and the others were well aware of Yun Shang's superb medical skills. They also chose to believe in Yun Shang. Yun Shang was also straightforward and threw 2 bottles of medicine to them. Lady Yun Shang, we are willing to purchase the pills at their original price. Hui Yu also stepped forward. Hui Yu, you're a good friend of Divine Wind, so you're also a good friend of mine. I Yun Shang never accept money from my good friends. It's a great price free of charge. Yun Shang smiled and offered the pills with both hands. She also gave 2 bottles of pills to Heaven's Wing Jade. Yun Shang suggested that everyone take the elixir first thing in the morning. By then, they would be able to pass the sea and skyline in one go. In this way, among the remaining 5 forces, apart from the Zhao State and Dihong City who had left earlier, only Tang Yuan and Li Xiao did not have the antidote. Although Li Xiao and Yun Shang were enemies, there was one thing that he had to admit. Yun Shang's medical skills were extraordinary. She was able to become the continent's youngest national healer. Her reputation was not undeserved. Li Xiao had also witnessed Yun Shang's miraculous medical skills with his own eyes. Yun Shang's title of national healer was personally conferred by Emperor Tang Yuan. At that time, Yun Shang only relied on a little pollen to cure the Empress. When Yun Shang mentioned the Taiyuan eucalyptus, Li Xiao already believed it. Yun Shang, I am also willing to buy the pills. In order to pass the sea and skyline, Li Xiao could only put down his face and buy the pills from Yun Shang. 10,000 purple gold coins were equivalent to 100,000 gold coins in the Empire's gold coins. If it was not related to the artifact, Li Xiao would never be a sucker. Oh, the second prince is also interested. Good, my little Xiantong has always adhered to this principle, but everyone has a price. Since there's a price for friends and family, and also a price for allies, I'll also give you a price. I'll sell it to you for 20,000 purple gold coins per pill. Yun Shang said with a smile. His lips parted as he revealed a price. 20,000 purple gold coins, all right. Li Xiao readily agreed, but then he suddenly realized something. Yun Shang, don't be so shameless. Why do other people only need 5,000 gold coins to buy it? Some people even give it to you for free, but I want 20,000 gold coins. Although Li Xiao was the second prince of Tang Yuan, he was very rich. But in these years, the crown prince's wings were becoming more and more plentiful. Li Xiao was further suppressed, and his income shrank a lot. 20,000 purple gold coins for 20 people was equivalent to 4 million gold coins, which was already a sky-high price. I like it, I am willing, what do you care? My price also depends on the person who gives it. The price I give you is called a cheap price. Doubling the original price is already a small price. But first of all, there are only 2 bottles left. If you don't want them, I can throw them into the sea to feed the fish. Yun Shang sneered, and made a gesture to throw the last 2 bottles into the sea. Cheap woman. Second prince, you must not be fooled by her, she is threatening us. Ke Ling saw Yun Shang's threat, so she jumped out to dissuade Li Xiao. I was careless. My hand slipped. Yun Shang's hand trembled, and the bottle of medicine in her hand flew out with a whoosh. Li Xiao wanted to grab it, but it was too late. He could only watch the bottle fall into the dark cliff and be swallowed by the sea. Li Xiao almost fainted. With 1 bottle missing, it meant that he could only take 9 people into the ruins. 50,000 purple gold coins for 1 pill. Remember, every time you curse this ant, I will raise the price. Yun Shang smiled innocently, and her black eyes were surprisingly bright. Ke Ling wanted to curse again. Get out. Li Xiao was afraid that she would anger Yun Shang again, so he kicked her to the side. Afraid that Yun Shang would really throw away the last bottle of medicine, Li Xiao painfully took out a purple gold card with 500,000 imperial purple gold coins on it. Everything would have been fine if you had taken the money earlier. Alas, second prince, you are smart all your life but stupid this time. You didn't want to buy 2 bottles of medicine with 400,000 purple gold coins, but you wanted to buy 1 bottle with 500,000 purple gold coins. You can be willful when you have money. Yun Shang took the purple gold card, and did not forget to give Li Xiao a fatal verbal blow. When Li Xiao took the bottle, he almost crushed it with his hands. The other major forces were dumbfounded when they saw this. Yun Shang was not threatening, she was simply robbing them. After the 6 major forces got the antidote, they waited until dawn. When dawn broke, the magicians of Tangyuan, who were stationed at the sky and sea line, had already woken up. Last night, Li Xiao reorganized the team and chose 9 magicians to accompany him. He decided to take advantage of the geographical advantage and be the first to cross the sky and sea line. Li Xiao could not wait to open the bottle. When he poured out the pills in the bottle, he was so angry that his nose almost went crooked. In the early morning, Li Xiao's voice resounded through the forest like a mad dog. "Yunxing, you slut! You actually dared to deceive this prince!" What made Li Xiao so furious was the bottle of pills that he had spent 500,000 purple gold coins to buy. Li Xiao thought that it would be some kind of elixir, but when he opened the bottle, what poured out was small red wild fruits. "Have you all been led astray by the night fox? You all are cute at the age of youth, but you all are like wolves and tigers urging me to change." Chapter 804. Li Xiao opened the bottle to take a look. He had spent 50,000 purple coins to buy the antidote. It was the wild fruit that Li Xiao had seen when he entered the mountain earlier. These beet-sized red wild fruits could be found all over the mountain. They weren't valuable at all. He didn't expect that Yun Shang would use this kind of wild fruit to pass off as the antidote. Li Xiao's roar alarmed all the people from the 5 powers. Other than Du Guxiu, when everyone discovered that the antidote was the small wild fruit, their faces became twisted and they became furious. They looked like they had been played to death. At this time, Yun Shang was still meditating. Hearing the roar that shook the mountain, Yun Shang calmly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and finished meditating. "Second prince, it's not good to be so angry so early in the morning." Yun Shang took out a small wild fruit. "This is the antidote. I didn't say that the antidote was a pill that I refined. How long has it been since I entered the mountain? How could I have refined a pill? However, I guarantee that after eating this small wild fruit, you will be able to smoothly cross the sky-sea line. If you don't believe me, I can demonstrate. If it doesn't work, I can refund everyone's money." After Yun Shang finished speaking, she was about to throw the small wild fruit into her mouth. "Wait!" Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu shouted at the same time. In a moment of desperation, the two grabbed Yun Shang's left and right hands. "This prince will try first. This prince will try first." Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu looked at each other. Regardless of whether the small wild fruit was the antidote or not, the two of them didn't want Yun Shang to take the risk of being the first to cross the sky-sea line. At this time, even a blind person could see the strange relationship between the 3 of them. One was Zhou State's Duke Baiming, the other was later Qin's crown prince. They were actually willing to take the risk for a woman. "The 2 of you are delicate and precious. Let me do it." Qi, who had been silent on the side, suddenly made a shocking move. He swallowed a small wild fruit and walked straight to the sky and sea line. "Abandon." Yun Shang's hand was still held by Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu. In a moment of desperation, she broke free from their grasp and ran forward to stop Abandon. "It's fine." Abandon shook his head and walked forward resolutely. He was not the crown prince, nor was he a prince. He was just an ordinary man who wanted to silently protect the woman he loved. This time, let him do something for Yun Shang. There wasn't much hesitation on Qi Ye's overly handsome face. He walked towards the sea and skyline. His figure was not as tall as Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu, but at this moment he had a special charm. Abandon was half lying on the mountain wall, slowly moving forward. At first, his footsteps were a little slow, but as time went on, his movements became faster. After walking for about half a kilometer, he cast a wind magic spell on himself, and his speed became even faster. After walking for another 5 or 6 li, Abandon called out to Yun Shang and the others, "Everything is normal. You can come over." The mainland's elite camp let out a burst of joyous cheers. Lan immediately adjusted the formation. She and Yun Shang walked in the middle, Yi Baiming in front, and Du Guxiu in the back. The group of people walked in a single file towards the sea and skyline. Seeing that the mainland's elite camp and the people from later Qin had successfully reached the sea and skyline, the rest of the people were relieved. Tianyu and Zhou Qingchuan were the second group to follow. Next was Huayu and the others from the Immortal Keeper Nation. Chengbai and the others followed closely behind. Rui and the others from the temple also walked over. Even after most of the people had left, Li Xiao's face was still gloomy. With Yi Biming and Du Guxiu's protection, he didn't dare to openly cause trouble for Yun Sheng. Second prince, should we follow them? Keling was afraid when she saw Li Xiao's appearance, so she asked boldly, "What are you following for? Why aren't you gathering some more wild fruits?" Li Xiao was so angry that he almost had a stroke. He had been completely tricked by Yun Sheng. Even though they had already walked 2 or 3 li, Yun Sheng could still hear Li Xiao's angry curses along with the wind. They had already walked for a long time. After dispelling the poison of the Taiyuan eucalyptus, no one else had encountered any danger. At the beginning, the sea and skyline was a bit difficult to walk, but it became easier towards the end. Yun Sheng could even chat as they walked. Next to Yun Sheng was Sister Lan. Yun Sheng's actions this time made Lan have a whole new level of respect for her. At first, Lan thought that Yun Sheng only had some talent in magic medicine. She didn't expect that she was also so good at ancient medicine. "Yun Sheng, how did you know that the wild fruits were the antidote?" Lan had accompanied Yun Sheng to find the Taiyuan eucalyptus. After Yun Sheng confirmed that the Taiyuan eucalyptus was the antidote, she didn't turn back immediately. Instead, she searched the forest and gathered more than 100 small wild fruits. Then, she put them in medicine bottles. It's very simple. Sister Lan, when you entered the Taiyuan mountain, you should have noticed that there were many birds resting on the Taiyuan eucalyptus trees. They lived on the Taiyuan eucalyptus trees all year round, but they weren't poisoned. I thought that they must have taken the antidote. Sometimes, magical beasts are much more sensitive than humans. In her previous life, Yun Sheng had studied Chinese medicine since she was a child. According to the theory of Chinese medicine, yin and yang complemented each other. Wherever there was poison, there must be something that could counteract it. For example, where venomous snakes appeared, there must be herbs that could suppress their toxicity. This was the most mysterious law of nature. With this thought in mind, Yun Sheng searched the forest and found that the red wild fruits growing at the bottom of the eucalyptus trees had many traces of birds pecking at them. After confirming that the wild fruits weren't poisonous, Yun Sheng found that her consciousness had become much clearer after eating the wild fruits. Only then did she feel at ease to gather the wild fruits. As for selling the wild fruits at a high price, it was just an idea that came to her on the spur of the moment. Li Xiao of the Tang Yuan dynasty, Du Guxiu of the later Qin dynasty, and Rui of the Buddhist temple, which one of them wasn't rich? She would be a fool if she didn't make a big profit. Yun Sheng's words fell into Du Guxiu's ears without missing a word. Madame Qi Bai heard this and took the opportunity to say, "Crown Prince, I told you that woman is very cunning." But looking at Du Guxiu, there wasn't the slightest bit of displeasure in his eyes. On the contrary, there was a rare trace of a smile on his usually cold face. "Yun Sheng, you really are the woman that this crown prince has taken a fancy to." Zhou Qingchuan shook his head. He had already experienced Yun Sheng's methods. However, after a few years, Yun Sheng seemed to have become even more two-faced. He also wondered where she had learned these methods. Thinking about it, Li Xiao was quite unlucky. Earlier, Yi Biming had cheated him of his purple gold mine. And now Yun Sheng had cheated him of a large sum of money. TSK, Yun Sheng and Yi Biming, could they be considered as birds of a feather flocking together? With Yun Sheng's life-saving elixir, the extremely dangerous sea and skyline was finally completed after walking for an entire afternoon without any mishaps. We're finally done. This broken road almost scared this young master's heart out of his chest. After walking down the sea and skyline and stepping onto a normal mountain path, Changbai couldn't help but complain. Chapter 805. With Xiao Yegua's help, except for Tang Yuan and Li Xiao, the other 5 forces successfully crossed the line between the sea and the sky. After crossing the line between the sea and the sky, they had already reached the ridge of the mountain more than 4,000 meters above sea level. After crossing a section of the mountain road ahead, they officially entered the territory of the Taiyuan ruins. From where they were standing, they could already vaguely see the ruins behind the dense forest. Thinking of the various legends about the Taiyuan ruins, even Changbai, who was used to laughing, could not help but become serious and dignified. It was unknown whether it was because of the giant purple cloud or because the temperature had dropped due to the elevation, but the mountain road no longer had the bright sunshine when they entered the mountain. The sky was dark and gloomy, giving off an oppressive feeling. There were no green trees and red flowers around, and even the birds and other magical beasts were nowhere to be seen. There's a fork in the road ahead. After walking for a while, there were 5 forks in the road ahead. 5 forked paths lay there quietly. Every single one of them looked exactly the same. It looked as if any of the roads could lead to the top of the mountain, but it was also possible that only one of them could lead to the top. A strange feeling welled up in everyone's hearts. The village chief did not mention that there were forks in the mountain before. These forks looked very new, which was very contradictory to the ancient history of the Taiyuan ruins. Why were there just 5 of them? It was as if someone had already known that the 5 forces would enter the mountain and had specially prepared for them. No one chose rashly. After all, whether the chosen route was correct or not was directly related to whether they could find the Taiyuan ruins. The leaders of the several forces came out. After some discussion, they decided to draw lots and each force chose a fork in the road. After drawing lots, Lan picked the first fork in the road on the left. By Zhou, we have to go our separate ways. Be careful. Yi Baiming separated from Cheng, and Bu Yunsheng also said goodbye to Tianyu, Horyu and the others. The people of the 5 forces went into their own forks. After half an hour, the unlucky second prince of Tangyuan, Li Xiao, arrived with a group of Tangyuan's magicians. However, there was only a lonely mountain path in front of them. Traces of people walking on it could be seen faintly. Tisk, sure enough, they've all left. Let's hurry up and catch up with them. Li Xiao led his men and rushed forward on the mountain path. After choosing the fork in the road, Yun Shang and her team continued to walk forward. Along the way, everything was normal. Both sides of the mountain path were covered with thick layers of fallen leaves. It looked like no one had passed through it for a long time. However, after walking for a while, Duguxiu suddenly stopped the group. There seems to be something wrong. It seems that the Taiyuan ruins are already very close, but after walking for 2 hours, the top of the mountain still seems very far away. Duguxiu frowned as he looked at the faintly visible white buildings on the top of the mountain. Not only Duguxiu but Yun Shang and the others also noticed it. They were clearly walking, but the scenery around them and the mountain road seemed to be endless. It's getting late. Let's rest here for a while. The sky was gloomy, so Lan decided to let the students rest for a while. That night, the 20 students and the later Qin warriors rested in the open. When they woke up in the morning, they hastily ate some dry food and water and prepared to continue walking. Who knew that when they were doing a head count, Lan would suddenly discover that there was one person missing from the elite camp. We're also missing a warrior. Duguxiu also checked his subordinates and discovered that there was one person missing. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. After a series of inquiries, Lan found out from the missing magician's companions that the magician had left the group in the middle of the night because he needed to go to the toilet. He had entered the mountain forest to relieve himself. That warrior was the same. He also left the group in the middle of the night. Duguxiu also had the same information. The sky was still gray. If it weren't for the hourglass, Yun Shang and the others wouldn't even be able to distinguish between day and night. Let's enter the mountain forest and see if we can find any clues. Remember, don't scatter. Maintain the same formation as when we were on the mountain path. Duguxiu ordered his subordinates to immediately line up. Yun Shang and Lan followed in the middle. Everyone's expression was very grave. They hadn't returned for an entire night. The lives of those 2 members were probably. Everyone left the mountain path and walked step by step into the depths of the forest. Taiyuan Mountain was very large. Because the trees here hadn't been cut down for hundreds of years, the ground was covered with withered grass and dead leaves. In the deepest part of the forest, even someone as tall as Yi Baiming and Duguxiu would be submerged by the grass and leaves if they were to fall. The later Qin warriors walked at the very front. They cut down the trees as they walked and walked for almost half an hour. Everyone look. Up ahead. The warrior walking at the front saw a familiar figure leaning against a tree with his back facing everyone. After finding the missing warrior, the later Qin people, including Duguxiu, all breathed a sigh of relief. These people were all Duguxiu's personal guards. They had followed Duguxiu since they were young. The relationship between master and servant was very strong. Judging from his clothes and build, he was the missing Laterchin soldier. "You brat, you made us look for you for a long time," the warrior in the lead complained and stepped forward to punch the missing warrior. When he heard the sound, the missing warrior turned his head. There was a weird creaking sound of bones moving. After seeing the man's face, the Laterchin warrior in the lead screamed and staggered back a few steps. How was this a Hochin martial artist? This was clearly a skeleton that had lost all humanity. Half of its face was rotten to the bone, while the other half was covered in rotting flesh. The eyeballs in its eye sockets were yellowish with the eyeballs hanging out. The skeleton warrior suddenly pulled out the saber at his waist and looked at the warrior in the lead. The warrior in the lead wasn't on guard. The saber slashed through the air and chopped off his left arm. Duguxiu and the Laterchin warriors were shocked. A zombie. The Laterchin Iron Blood Knights were worthy of being called elite troops. At this moment they showed great discipline. They split into groups of 3. One group covered the injured warrior, while the other group covered Duguxiu and Madame Qi Bai. Bang! Just as Lan and the others were about to help, a fireball suddenly shot out from the forest. There was another person standing in the forest. That person was the magician who had gone missing in the middle of the night. His appearance was similar to the zombie warrior. He was also half a corpse and half a skeleton. He had been hiding in the forest and sneakily attacking everyone. In just one night, the warriors and magicians, who were still alive and kicking earlier, had turned into zombies that were neither human nor ghost. It was too strange. Chase! Lan didn't hesitate and immediately led a group of magicians to chase after the zombie magician. Chapter 806. After a series of attacks, the skeletal zombie was killed by a Laterchin warrior. When it was killed, its corpse turned into a puddle of pus, emitting a foul stench. Lan and the others also returned. Because there were too many trees and vegetation in the mountain forest, they didn't dare to rashly enter. "Your Highness, it's bad. Lu Wu can't hold on any longer." Lu Wu was the Laterchin warrior who had been injured by the zombie warrior. His bleeding had already stopped, but where his arm had been cut off, his flesh and bone had already changed color. The zombie poison was seeping into the other parts of his body. It wouldn't be long before he would become like that zombie martial artist, completely losing his humanity. He wouldn't even be able to recognize his own brothers and relatives. Lan and the others stood to the side with solemn expressions. Duguxiu stood guard by the warrior's side, not saying a word. "Your Highness, this subordinate doesn't ask for anything other than death." Lu Wu revealed a gloomy smile. Rather than becoming a zombie that was neither human nor ghost and hurting his brothers, he would rather die now. "Is there any way?" Duguxiu didn't raise his head, but asked Yun Shang. Faced with such a situation, Yun Shang was also very gloomy. However, she was also powerless. She had never experienced zombie poison before, and didn't have any medicinal herbs that could be used at the moment. Silence was the best answer. Duguxiu hung his head. The other 6 Laterchin warriors also had red eyes. Madame Qi Bai also had a gloomy expression. These people were all good brothers who had gone through fire and water together. It was too cruel to let Duguxiu personally kill them. "Lu Wu, this crown prince promises you that as long as I, Duguxiu, am alive, I will ensure that your family will not have to worry about food and clothing." Duguxiu suddenly stood up and pulled out his heavy sword. With a blunt sound, the skull was shattered. Lu Wu closed his eyes forever. Duguxiu's face didn't show any grief, but the hand holding the heavy sword trembled slightly. As the iron-blooded crown prince of Laterchin, Duguxiu had to be iron-blooded and emotionless in this kind of situation. Because the zombie poison was contagious, Duguxiu asked Lan to burn Lu Wu's corpse. The weapons in the hands of the martial artists who had slaughtered the zombie martial artists earlier were all tempered with fire once again. Since the zombie magician had escaped, no one dared to rashly enter the depths of the forest. After discussing for a while, everyone decided to turn back the way they came. That night, no one slept well. They still couldn't find a way out. Everyone was guessing what had happened in the forest that night. What had caused the warrior and magician to become like this? In the latter half of the night, a whimpering sound came from the forest, as if some wild beast was moving around. There's an enemy attack. Yi Baiming suddenly sat up. The others also stood up. When they saw the situation in front of them clearly, everyone's scalps went numb, and a sense of horror rose spontaneously. The sound came from the trees. Looking carefully, the trees that had been empty during the day were now filled with owl-like birds. They looked the same as the zombie warriors and zombie magicians during the day, half-rotten flesh and half-skeletons. There were no feathers on its body, and its body was burning with a strange green flame that resembled a will-o'-the-wisp. In the dark night, balls of will-o'-the-wisp were like the will-o'-the-wisp of the netherworld in a graveyard. It was very frightening. Hiki, on a tree in front of them, the magician who had escaped during the day was looking at everyone with a ghastly expression. He waved the magic scepter in his hand, and a green magical wall of fire instantly drilled out of the ground, forming a circle of fire that surrounded all 17 people. Lan chanted, wanting to use ice magic to extinguish the magical wall of fire. Who would have thought that ice magic would have no effect on the strange wall of fire? And the fire continued to burn fiercely. Off to the side, a female magician screamed. Because she couldn't dodge in time, her body was stained by the green wall of fire. It was just a bit of fire, but in the blink of an eye her body quickly changed. Her flesh quickly decayed, and her white bones could be seen. She quickly turned into a zombie magician. She jumped up and stood on the tree with the zombie magician. The female magician was an earth magician. As soon as she turned into a zombie, she quickly pierced a few earth spikes. What made everyone tremble with fear was that her earth spikes actually carried the effect of zombie poison. The raging fire approached step by step, and no one dared to rush out of the wall of fire. In addition, they also had to be on guard against the earth spikes that were everywhere. Damn it, what the hell is that? Madame Chi-Bai was also unlucky. There were several times when she was almost hit by the earth spikes. She didn't want to become like the zombie female magician, who was neither human nor ghost. Little wild cat, follow me. Yi Baiming's gaze focused. The situation was critical, and he had to make a decision in the shortest amount of time. Whether or not they could successfully break out of the encirclement was not only related to him, but also related to Yunshang's life. In the blink of an eye, Yi Baiming reacted. His right arm shook, and a biting cold fighting aura tore apart the green zombie fire. He then stomped his feet, hiding Yunshang behind him, and a layer of biting cold fighting aura emanated from his body. The wind tore a crack in the zombie fire, just enough for the two of them to pass through. He pulled Yunshang and was about to cross the gap in the fire. As for the others, he was too lazy to pay attention to them. When Duguxiu saw this, he didn't show any signs of weakness. He roared, and a dense black fighting aura surrounded his body. He reached out and protected Madame Chi-Bai under his hand. He leapt up, reaching a height of several dozen meters. Without using his fighting aura wings, he had already passed through the wall of fire. Yunshang was pulled along by Yi Baiming, but she was still worried about Qi and Sister Lan. Just as the two of them were about to cross the wall of fire, Yunshang's eyelids twitched. Not good. Yunshang's sharp senses detected a wave of earth magic that was about to take action. The zombie female magician had already chanted, and several earth spikes that were dipped in zombie poison broke out of the ground. If this continued, Yunshang and Yi Baiming would both be stabbed. Without any hesitation, Yunshang broke free from Yi Baiming's hand and pushed Yi Baiming away. Her body, however, fell into the zombie fire due to the strong inertia. The zombie fire gathered once again, and the green flames instantly engulfed Yunshang. Yunshang! Yi Baiming's heart trembled. His fear transformed into an icy chill that invaded his entire body, and a vicious aura engulfed Yi Baiming like a flood. In that instant, his gray eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty killing intent, and scales burst out from his arms. Seeing Yunshang fall into the fire, Duguxiu's heart also trembled. He pushed Madame Yunshang outside and was about to rush into the fire to rescue Yunshang. Just at this moment, Duguxiu's eyes froze, and his body that was about to jump into the fire stopped abruptly. He thought that he was seeing things, but there was a trace of red in the zombie fire that was burning again. Chapter 807. At first, the red was just a small dot, but later on the red was like a spark that could not be stopped. Like a demonic lotus fire from hell, It burned crazily as if oil had been poured on it. A figure walked out of the wall of fire. The figure became clearer and clearer, and it was Yun Shang. Bathed in fire, Yun Shang's magic robe fluttered even though there was no wind. Her face was fair and flawless in the green zombie fire. But the most frightening thing was her forehead. The mark that symbolized the elven hellfire was tender and beautiful, as if it would burst out of her forehead at any time. When Yun Shang fell into the zombie fire, she was not afraid at all, playing with fire with her. What a joke, showing off one's slight skill in front of an expert. Tonight she was going to let those blind zombies take a look. Who was the ancestor of playing with fire? A sense of pride arose spontaneously. She was the only inheritor of the elven hellfire on the continent. The elven hellfire was the king of all flames. All other flames would retreat when they saw it. Du Guxiu seemed to be possessed as he stared at the beautiful face in the flames. Yun Shang's black hair fluttered in the flames. Her eyes were as dark as the night. One look from her could suck away a person's soul. With every step she took, a lotus-like ball of hellfire would appear under her feet. With every step she took, the remaining green zombie fire would shrink back a little. The elven hellfire that came from the Fire Elven Queen was a divine fire that had a part of the power of the ancient divine beast, Swanee. How could ordinary zombie fire compare to it? Once Yun Shang's elven hellfire appeared, the zombie fire retreated as if it had met its natural enemy. It was engulfed by the elven hellfire in an instant. It was as if an army of 1,000,000 ferocious lions were charging toward a defeated army. The zombie fire was forced to retreat, and the elven hellfire was closing in on them. The zombie fire was extinguished, but Yun Shang did not forget the culprit. She raised her left hand high, and the second soul stone on her magic scepter shone. The incantation in her mind was completed in an instant. She waved her right hand, and a fiery explosion hit the zombie mage on the tree. The latter didn't even have time to cry out before his entire body turned into a ball of flames and burned to ashes, falling to the ground. When the zombie-like male magician was burned to ashes and fell to the ground, the people trapped in the fire took the opportunity to rush out. When Madame Chi Bai saw Yun Shang's karmic fire of the Red Lotus, her face revealed a terrified expression. She didn't expect that Yun Shang could release such a domineering fire. The mages, including Azura, were also dumbstruck. At this moment, Yun Shang was like a killing god bathed in flames. With a raise of her hand, she possessed a terrifying power that could take people's lives. Jie! An ear-piercing bird cry pierced his eardrums. Just as Yun Shang killed the zombie male magician, an ear-piercing shriek came from the tree. Only then did everyone realize that among the hundreds of night owls resting on the branches, there was one that was the most special. Its appearance somewhat resembled an owl, but upon closer inspection, one would realize that it was different from the other zombie owls. Its entire body was covered in purple feathers, and its feathers were glossy. Its pair of eyes emitted a pale green glow as it stood at the highest point of the branch, looking like a monarch overlooking the world. Needless to say, this night owl was the leader of this group of zombie owls, the purple-feathered Night Owl King. When Yun Shang suddenly released the karmic fire of the elves, the purple-feathered night owl's eyes revealed a human-like rage. Its mung bean-sized eyes stared hatefully at Yun Shang. When it first discovered that this group of strangers had entered Taiyuan Mountain, the Night Owl King first targeted Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu in the crowd. These two people were the strongest among all of them. Therefore, just now, it also focused its attack on the two of them. But it didn't expect that such a terrifying flame would suddenly burst out from within this female magician's body. Out of a magical beast's intuition, the Night Owl King's consciousness had an additional warning. Threat, threat, that woman is a threat. Kill her, kill her. Her flame carries a trace of divine power. She must be killed first. As soon as the Night Owl King's shrill cry fell, the zombie owls that were originally perched on the tree trunk flapped their wings one after another. There were actually hundreds of them in the flock. Their feathers fell and turned into daggers covered in zombie poison. They blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they flew towards Yun Shang and many other places behind her. These feathered beasts. Yi Baiming's gaze turned cold. He pushed his palm forward, and a gust of fighting aura swept towards those daggers like a gale. The fighting aura was like the roar of a dragon and the roar of a tiger. Its power was astonishing. The moment it touched those daggers, the daggers were shaken into powder. "Release the arrows and kill that purple night owl," Duguxiu ordered, and the later Qin cavalry raised their arrows one after another. At this moment everyone, including Duguxiu, could already clearly see that the purple night owl king was the leader of these zombies. Lan and the others were entangled with the female zombie magician. The later Qin soldiers drew their crossbows and shot randomly at the zombie bird. However, the purple night owl king's movements were extremely agile. Many of the crossbow arrows were dodged by it one by one. It flapped its wings and from time to time, it created a small purple whirlpool. As soon as the crossbow arrows got close to the whirlpool, they were sucked into the whirlpool. It flapped its wings again, and the whirlpool spat out more crossbow arrows. The crossbow arrows changed direction and shot towards the soldiers who shot the arrows. Not only did this night owl king have amazing strength, but it also knew how to think like a human. It was extremely difficult to deal with. "Let me borrow your bow." Just as the later Qin soldiers were in a terrible state, Yun Shang asked for a crossbow. The later Qin cavalryman looked at Duguxiu. Although Duguxiu didn't know what Yun Shang wanted a bow for, he still nodded and let the soldier pass the bow to Yun Shang. She knocked the bow, aimed at the night owl king and moved her fingertips. The arrow, which had the effect of sealing magic, whistled through the air. It was extremely sharp and shot directly towards the night owl king. In terms of arm strength, Yun Shang, who only had the physique of a magician, could not even compare to the later Qin cavalryman's arrows. This move again. A trace of disdain flashed across the night owl king's mung-bean eyes. It casually flapped its wings, and a purple whirlpool was about to form. Unexpectedly, just as the owl king raised its wings, a wave of magic rippled, and its wings were instantly immobilized. The elf's magic sealing arrow came into play in a timely manner. Immediately after, the second and third arrows were shot. The night owl king's body was firmly fixed. For the first time there was fear in its eyes. With the night owl king's body restrained, the rest of the battle became much simpler. Azra and the others killed the female zombie magician, and the zombie night owls were also cleaned up. Qi stepped forward and caught the night owl king. What surprised everyone was that this night owl king was not a zombie. It was a living magic beast. The origin of the zombie poison was quickly investigated. It was all the doing of this night owl king. Its beak and claws carried zombie poison. The warriors and magicians who had turned into zombies because they had been infected with the zombie poison from its body. After the battle, a small number of people in the elite camp suffered minor injuries, and 2 magicians died. Chapter 808. On Ho Qin's side they also lost 2 martial artists. Another few people were seriously injured. With Yun Shang around, those people's lives were not in danger. "What species is this? I don't think I've seen it before." Madame Qi Bai examined the purple feather owl king. Not only on the boundless continent, but even in the Ba Huang tribe, she had never seen such a magical beast. It should be a mutated magical beast. Abandon carefully extracted the poison from the owl king's body. He was worried that they would encounter more purple feather owl kings later on in the journey. For safety reasons, he planned to find the antidote with Yun Shang as soon as possible. With the antidote, they wouldn't have to be afraid of zombies later on. Taiyuan ruins are indeed a little strange. Yun Shang recalled the Taiyuan eucalyptus at the foot of the mountain, and this terrifying purple feather owl. Taiyuan Mountain hid 2 types of mutated creatures that had never appeared on the mainland. This wasn't a good thing. "Ah!" Madame Qi Bai screamed. The purple feather owl king exploded right in front of her eyes. Purple blood sprayed all over her face. It was smelly and fishy, scaring her so much that she turned pale. "TSK, this thing can actually self-destruct. We didn't find the soul stone." Lan was a little disappointed. "It's okay. I've already extracted the poison and a portion of its blood. It should be able to be used for treatment." Abandon had already obtained a portion of the poison and blood. After checking, he found that it was similar to the first type of snake venom that Mentor Shi Huang had found. "There's an exit in front." Yi Baiming and a few warriors from the mainland's elite camp walked back. After being trapped in this mountain path for 3 days and 3 nights, they finally found the exit. It seemed that the reason why they couldn't find the exit earlier was because of this purple feather owl. "Then let's get out quickly." If we stay in this damned place any longer, we'll puke. Yun Shang and the others followed the group and walked forward. After the journey to the fork, the number of people in their group increased to 16. While Yun Shang and the others were trapped in the fork, the situation of the other forces who had entered the different forks was not worse than Yun Shang and the others. Although they didn't encounter any zombies, they did encounter magical beasts of the 4 major attributes. The magical beasts' magic was very strange. After a bloody battle and losing nearly half of their members, the members of the major forces finally managed to escape from their respective mountain paths. Damn it, my clothes are ruined. Changbai took a deep breath after walking out of the fork in the road. Changbai had never been in such a sorry state in his entire life. He had always fancied himself as a romantic, and had the image of a young master dressed in plain clothes. But this time when he came out, his hair was burnt, his clothes were black, and even the bone fan in his hand had a big hole in it. Zhou State and the Hunters Guild didn't have much luck. They encountered a fire-type commander-level magical beast, the Bramble Firebird. The flames spat out by this kind of bird could even melt purple gold ore. Although there were a few mages in the team, they didn't help them at all. They caused the deaths of several people in the Wuxia Everlasting Hall, and one person in the Hunters Guild. Because of this, Changbai and Bujiuxiao had some opinions about the mages. Along the way they didn't say a word. It's good enough that we're alive. I think the other forces aren't much better than us. Bujiuxiao's situation was worse than Changbai's. At the last moment, he killed the flaming bird with his own strength. Although he successfully killed the flaming firebird, Bujiuxiao's arm was also burned by the fire and couldn't be used for a while. His left arm was already wrapped in a thick bandage and couldn't be used for the time being. Sai, I hope Baiming and the others are fine. Isn't that Baiming and the others? Changbai was still worried about the situation on Yi Baiming's side. As he spoke, he saw Yi Baiming and the others walking out of the forest. At the same time, Tianyu, Zhou Qingchuan, Huoyu and the others also walked out. The few teams actually arrived at about the same time. Even Li Xiao came out with several of Tang Yuan's mages. Everyone's situation wasn't good. There were fewer people and some people in the team were injured. However, the few of them noticed that the fork in the road earlier had disappeared. They all walked out of the forest in different directions. Bai Zhuxiao, why are you guys like this? Seeing his good friend in a sorry state and injured state, Yi Baiming couldn't help but be shocked. Wow, you guys don't look like you've lost much. Only 4 people are missing. We've lost 7 people. Changbai glanced at Yi Baiming's team. Other than a few people who were slightly injured, the others were neatly dressed and looked like they had just returned from an outing. The other major factions also suffered losses. Heaven's Wing Jade's group lost 8 people. On Huoyu's side, 9 sprites died. Their luck was even worse. They suddenly encountered water-type magical beasts with attributes that countered each other, causing their losses to be especially heavy. However, the one who suffered the most losses was Tang Yuan. Li Xiao had not hesitated to waste time earlier and turned back to the foot of the mountain to collect wild fruits. He brought 20 people and thought that they could successfully reach the Taiyuan ruins. Who knew that they would enter a strange fork in the road? They also encountered the purple feather owl king at the fork in the road. However, compared to Yun Shang and the others, they had no elven hellfire or abandon, who knew how to detoxify the zombie poison. When they broke out of the encirclement, a total of 13 people died. Li Xiao only brought out 7 people. In that case, there's clearly no fork in the road. I feel like we've stepped into a trap set by someone else. Looking at the dense forest without a single fork in the road, everyone had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. In the past 3 days, this seemingly peaceful forest had devoured dozens of lives. Who knew how many human bones were buried in the withered leaves and bushes in the forest? This damned ghost historical site is really strange, Changbai spat. But even so, no one was willing to withdraw at this time. They were here for the divine artifact. After climbing another 500 meters, they would be able to enter the Taiyuan ruins. The ancient Taiyuan ruins were already clearly visible. The white buildings that looked like they were carved out of ivory were waiting for them at the top of the mountain. The major forces decided to rest for a day before entering the Taiyuan ruins. This time no one planned to go first. After the strange Taiyuan eucalyptus and the bizarre appearance and disappearance of the mountain path, Everyone felt that they could not act rashly. No one knew what kind of ridiculous creatures would exist in the Taiyuan ruins. At night, everyone camped in place to rest and set off for the ruins the next morning. At that time, it was already the 6th day since the 6 major forces entered the Taiyuan ruins. Chapter 809. On the top of the mountain, the purple cloud was entrenched. It was a clear night. If there were no purple clouds, one would be able to see the sky full of stars on such a high mountain. But because of the purple cloud, the moonlight could only pour down through the purple cloud. The moonlight was also dyed purple and fell on the white Taiyuan ruins. The whole ruins seemed to be dyed purple. Back then, Prince Taiyuan of Penglai had chosen Mount Taiyuan as his new territory. He'd brought his family and subordinates to settle down in Mount Taiyuan, which had been a barren wasteland at the time. How many people did the Prince of Taiyuan bring with him? This point was already unknown. But from the number of houses in the ruins of Taiyuan, the number of people should not be less than 100. Because there were hundreds of houses in the entire Taiyuan city. White was the main color of the ruins of Taiyuan. The buildings here, from the houses to the Taiyuan city lord's mansion, were all made of white stone. It was like a village in a fairy tale. She walked up the steps that were covered with moss. The cold wind on the top of the mountain blew in their ears. Late at night, the ruins were silent. Even the sound of insects could not be heard. They kept walking forward. At the highest point of Taiyuan Mountains, on the steepest mountain near the sea, there was a miracle castle that covered an area of more than 10 acres. It was indeed a castle. Compared to the castles in the pictures that Yun Shang saw in the modern world, it was more magnificent and more magical. This castle was the Taiyuan city lord's mansion. The Prince of Penglai did not hesitate to spend a lot of money to build the Taiyuan city lord's mansion. When the Taiyuan city lord's mansion was first built, it was very beautiful. It was like a pearl in Taiyuan mountains. Whether it was day or night, it shined brightly. But since Taiyuan city was destroyed overnight, it became a forbidden area in the eyes of the outside world. If it was not for the starry sky magic array in the temple indicating that the 8 barren artifacts were hidden here, perhaps no one would come here again. The Taiyuan city lord's mansion was the same as the other residences in the Taiyuan ruins. It was no longer complete. But compared to the ordinary houses in the Taiyuan ruins, the castle was more damaged. It was as if it had experienced an earthquake or a hurricane, or a terrifying thunderstorm. The entire city lord's mansion was split into 2 halves. Its dome-shaped roof, like a head cut off by an executioner on a scaffold, tumbled to the ground. The walls and doors had also collapsed. But upon closer inspection, whether it was the walls or the bricks, every brick and tile of the Taiyuan city lord mansion was carved out of priceless ivory. Even after experiencing the terrible accident hundreds of years ago, every tusk was still as new as before. Through the broken walls and slanted doors, one could see the luxurious scene of the former city lord's mansion. The ground was inlaid with magnificent marble, and a magic fountain that had already dried up was lying on the ground. There were also a large number of gold coins and precious gems scattered on the ground of the city lord's mansion. There were even some soul stones among them. Just these things alone were enough to make most of the people on the boundless continent go crazy. As long as one casually took some of them, it would be enough for many people to live without worries for the rest of their lives. However, all of this had been quietly scattered on the ground for hundreds of years. The night deepened. At this moment, from the deepest part of the city lord's mansion, a strange sound came from somewhere. Because it was too far away, Yun Shang and the others, who were still on the ridge, could not hear the sound here. The sound was very soft at first, but as time passed, the sound became louder and louder. Dong 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 dong, huff huff, it sounded like someone was underground, banging on the ground trying to break free from a dungeon. It also sounded like a prisoner who had been severely punished and could not bear the burden, panting heavily. The banging and panting sound echoed throughout the night. After the first ray of morning light appeared on the horizon, the sound gradually disappeared. On the ridge, Yun Shang had already completed her morning meditation. She unexpectedly discovered that after entering Taiyuan Mountain, although there were many dangers, but under the effect of the celestial meditation, the magic power in her body had stabilized a lot. She had vaguely jumped from the beginner level of Sky Mage to the intermediate level of Sky Mage. In just a few days' effort, there was actually such a gratifying improvement. Taiyuan Mountain was indeed a very mysterious place. Our is not much difference, let's prepare to set off. Lan and Duguxiu reorganized their troops, and the other major forces also walked together towards the ruins of Taiyuan. After crossing a mountain path that was not too steep, the ruins of Taiyuan finally appeared in front of them. So quiet, so beautiful. This was the feeling everyone had when entering Taiyuan. Other than the whistling of the sea breeze, there was no sound around. This place was like a corner forgotten by the world. Thousands of houses were scattered on this flat ridge in picturesque disorder. The Penglai Prince of Taiyuan must have been a very good person at government affairs. The area of Taiyuan City was not large, just the size of a village, but the houses here, no matter the height or style, were the same. Outside the houses, there were unified animal pens for magical beasts, and some traces of magic arrays. The city was crisscrossed with ditches, and the irrigation works were very convenient. For example, there was a magic water delivery device in the dormitory. Once the magic array was activated, clear water would flow out from the tap. In addition, there were a lot of magic arrays arranged in the houses. Those magic arrays could be used for heating and cooking. It could be seen that at that time in Taiyuan City, the popularity of magic was very high, and most of the residents also knew magic. Between the houses, there were neat paths. Looking at the situation more than 500 years ago, Taiyuan City was comparable to any powerful city-state on the boundless continent, whether in terms of economy or living conditions. However, this also increased the doubts of everyone. Why would such a peaceful city decline overnight? Because of the purple clouds, the sun on the top of the mountain was not strong. The ground was covered with emerald green weeds. The crowd did not rush to find the city lord mansion, but went to the nearby houses to look first. After 5 or 6 days of respawning, everyone was running low on food and water. Although they did not have much hope, they still wanted to see if they could find any food and water in the houses. Because of the ruins of Taiyuan, 60 to 70% of the houses have been damaged, or collapsed, or the walls have collapsed. Lan He and Yun Shang searched for about a quarter of an hour before they found a relatively less damaged house. They pushed open the half-closed door and heard a creak. The door opened. This was a house facing the north and south. There were 3 entrances. Entering the door was the hall, and on the side was the bedroom. In the hall, all the furnishings were normal. Yun Shang, look. Sister Lan pointed to the dining table in the hall. On the dining table, there were still bowls and chopsticks, as well as several dishes that had not been finished in time. Chapter 8:10. On the dining table in the bungalow, there were a few bowls and plates. Because too much time had passed, the food had dried up. Judging from the furnishings and the tidiness of the house, when the devastating disaster happened in Taiyuan City, the residents of this house were eating. It doesn't look like a disaster happened, Yun Shang pondered. There were several theories about what happened in Taiyuan City. Some people said that it was a sudden natural disaster that caused all the villagers to be struck by lightning and turned into ashes. But why were these houses still intact? Everything in the house was intact. Another theory was that because Taiyuan City was close to the sea, it experienced a sudden shipwreck. But Taiyuan City was located on such a high mountain, so a shipwreck was obviously impossible. The last theory, which was also the most reliable one, was that Taiyuan City experienced a beast disaster. As everyone knew, Taiyuan City was built by Taiyuan, the former prince of Penglai. He was expelled from the country because he disobeyed the authority of the Zhao state. Some people said that the Zhao state secretly sent a group of powerful magical beasts to kill the residents of Taiyuan City overnight. According to the situation in the house, this possibility was very low. Otherwise, if there was really a magical beast attack, the house would be a mess. This made it even more difficult for Yun Shang to guess what caused the destruction of Taiyuan City overnight. Could it be that the residents here were like dew, evaporating from the earth? Yun Shang and Lan found some fresh water in the house, and the food had been moldy and rotten. Other than that, there was nothing else. The residents' clothes and bedding had been weathered and turned into powder with a pinch. Yun Shang and Lan saw that there were no clues, so they walked out of the house. The other major forces also came out one after another. Everyone's discovery was the same as Yun Shang and the others. There is nothing unusual. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu also came out of the other two houses. The other major forces were already waiting at the intersection. The entire ruin was very quiet, but in this silence, there seemed to be a hair-raising feeling. Of the 7 powers that had entered the mountain earlier, only Tang Yuan, Immortal Abode, and Wuji were left. Skywings, the elite battalion, later Qin Zhou State, Hunters Guild, Law Temple, and the Medicine Emperor's Pavilion. When they entered the mountain, each team had 20 people. But now, the elite battalion and later Qin had the most people, with a total of 16 people. The other teams had around 10 people left, and Tang Yuan and Li Xiao had the least people. The total number of people had shrunk to 60 or so. The Taiyuan City Lord's mansion is right in front of us. The team moved forward. After passing through a collapsed defensive wall, the Taiyuan castle appeared in front of everyone. Even though part of it had already collapsed, the magnificence and luxury of the Taiyuan castle still attracted everyone's amazement. However, no one was truly immersed in this beautiful scenery. It was very likely that there was a divine artifact of the 8 desolate lands hidden in this castle. Because the entrance had been blocked by a large number of ivory stones, the major power spent nearly half a day clearing the entrance. The moment the entrance was cleared, Yun Sheng only heard a soft voice in her ear, like a sigh but also like a call. "You're here." Yun Sheng quivered. "What's wrong?" Yi Baiming saw that Yun Sheng's complexion was not very good and asked with concern. "No, maybe I heard wrong." Yun Sheng listened carefully again, but the voice from before had disappeared. "You must be too worried. After we go in, follow me." Yi Baiming's big hand held Yun Sheng's little hand. His eyes were so gentle that it could drown a sea. Yun Sheng did not answer. Her mind was still filled with the strange voice. Yi Baiming and Yun Sheng's actions fell into the eyes of the strange magician from Zhou State behind them. His eyes flashed with a hint of venomous hatred like that of a viper. The entrance to the Taiyuan castle was an arched stone door, and inside was a corridor paved with white marble. Heavens! This is a statue carved from purple gold. This is a blanket made from the fur of a 9th-ranked magical beast. In this corridor of about 100 meters long, all the items from the time of the Lord of Taiyuan City were perfectly preserved. The Lord of Taiyuan City came from Panglai, which is the country of summoners and magical beasts. Therefore, all the decorations in this corridor had a strong summoner's color. There was a statue of a magical beast placed every 5 meters in the corridor. There were statues of magical beasts from the 1st rank to the 9th rank, and even the commander rank. All the statues were made of purple gold, and the statues were vivid and lifelike. There were many different kinds of magical beasts. Such a statue, even if there was only one, could be sold at a sky-high price on the mainland. Although the warriors and magicians present were all experts carefully selected by the major forces, when they saw these purple gold statues of magical beasts, their eyes could not help but shine. Just when everyone was sighing and even going forward to touch the statues of magical beasts, Yun Sheng felt a chill down her spine. She always felt that these magical beasts seemed to be staring at them. They were just some statues. How could they give off such a feeling? Yun Sheng shook her head. It must be because she had experienced too much after entering Taiyuan Mountain in the past few days that she became paranoid. Look, there's a jade tablet in front. The only people who were immune to these sparkling purple gold statues of magical beasts were probably half-baked businessmen like Tianyi Yu and Zhou Qingchuan. Both of them were born in wealthy families and had long been accustomed to this purple gold. Tianyi Yu found a jade tablet. Even Tianyi Yu, who was used to seeing top-grade treasures, could not help but sigh when he saw this jade tablet that was more than 5 meters high. It was a piece of top-grade white marble. A jade tablet with such perfect cut and jade color was rare on the mainland. The jade tablet was engraved with the structure of the whole castle. From the map on the tablet, the whole Taiyuan castle was divided into several major parts. The magical beast corridor, the Taiyuan garden, the living room, the city lord's hall, and the underground palace. On the stone tablet, the main purpose and function of these castles were also briefly explained. Although the structure of the castle looked simple, it was actually as complicated as a maze. There were more than 100 living rooms for guests, and they were all suites with complicated structures. Needless to say, in the city lord's hall in the deepest part of the castle, There was a magic array that led to the underground palace. The corridor where everyone was now was the magical beast corridor on the jade tablet. It was 166 meters long and had a total of 22 magical beasts. There were 2 statues of magical beasts of each level, from the 1st level to the 9th level, and then to the saint level and king level magical beasts. Did you notice that there are only 2 king level magical beast statues missing? Yunsheng suddenly said. That's right, there are only 20 of them. It seems like we're missing 2 of the king level magic beast statues. Could it be that the statues grew legs and ran away? Changbai joked, but Yunsheng didn't even have a trace of a smile on her face. Chapter 8:11. Hey Yunsheng, you're too serious. You're making me nervous. No matter who it is, let's hurry up and find the divine artifact. Changbai was getting goosebumps because of Yunsheng's words. Apart from the magical beast corridor, the Taiyuan garden was further down. According to the jade tablet, the Taiyuan garden was built by the Taiyuan city lord to commemorate his beloved concubine who had passed away. It was a garden in the city, and there were many rare and precious herbs planted in it. There were also some holy and even divine-grade herbs that were rarely seen in the mainland. Seeing this, the eyes of the people from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion and the Dharma Temple burned with desire. Even if they didn't find any divine artifacts on this trip, there was no need for them to make this trip. TSK, this castle is too big. It's even bigger than the palace. There are so many living rooms. As they looked further down, they couldn't help but grumble. Not to mention finding the divine artifact, it would take at least a day to explore all these living rooms. Grumbling aside, they still had to find the divine artifact. After all the living rooms, they arrived at the core area of the Taiyuan castle, the city lord's palace. The city lord's palace was divided into the inner and outer halls. The outer hall was where the city lord of Taiyuan used to discuss important matters. It could be seen as a meeting room. The inner hall was where the city lord of Taiyuan slept. Seeing this, the leaders of the various factions thought to themselves, the divine artifact might be in the inner hall. Apart from the inner hall, the most special part of the entire Taiyuan castle was the underground palace. The underground palace was a special mausoleum where the city lord of Taiyuan buried his remains after his death. Before the mysterious incident in Taiyuan City, the underground palace had always been empty. Seeing this, the structure of the entire Taiyuan castle was very clear. The leaders were still deep in thought. I have a suggestion. After passing through the Taiyuan garden, why don't we let each faction choose their own destination? As for who can find the divine artifact, it'll all depend on their own abilities, Rui suggested. After entering the Taiyuan ruins, and especially after entering the Taiyuan city lord's residence, the leaders of the various factions understood that the real competition had only just begun. When they first entered Taiyuan Mountain, to put it bluntly, they were just fighting against demonic beasts and the harsh environment of Taiyuan Mountain. But now they were fighting against humans. In this world, the most terrifying thing was humans. The map was placed at the entrance. Taiyuan Castle was huge, so whoever could find the divine artifact first would be the winner. Everyone, including Lan and Du Guxiao, agreed with Ru Yi's suggestion. Although they were looking for the divine artifact separately, they all had the same goal in mind. Something as important as the divine artifact was most likely hidden in an important place like the city lord's palace. Every force sent one person to make a copy of the map. The magic beast cloister and Taiyuan flower garden were still a straight path, but according to the map, once they passed through the flower garden, they would see a corridor that led to a large number of living rooms. As they walked to the end of the corridor, Yunsheng frowned. However, the people from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion all cheered in unison. In front of them, the fragrance of herbs hit their faces. Although no one had taken care of it for 500 years, this indoor garden in Taiyuan Castle was still growing well. The secret lay in the huge 4 elements magic array in the middle of the garden. This magic array combined the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. The 4 elements magic array was a very ancient magic array. The drawing of this magic array had been lost. It could maintain the temperature, humidity, soil fertility, and air circulation in the garden, so that the herbs and flowers here could be maintained in the best condition. It's 7-leaf sage ginseng, Saint Grade jade snow lotus, and golden arrow pine. In the face of so many rare herbs, not to mention the people of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, even some of the accompanying warriors and magicians all rushed forward. They were desperate to collect those precious herbs. Yun Sheng, there's no problem with these herbs. Instructor Shi Huang needs some jade snow lotus. I'll go collect some. Abandon also wanted to collect some. The herbs here were all priceless. Abandon was sure that these things were not poisonous. Wait. Yun Sheng pulled Abandon. Don't forget about the Taiyuan eucalyptus. Yun Sheng could also see that these herbs were not poisonous. Regardless of color or smell, they were similar to the herbs she had seen on the continent. But when she thought of the experience of the Taiyuan eucalyptus before she left, Yun Sheng did not dare to act rashly. The city lord of Taiyuan was not only a summoner, but he was also unique in the field of herbs and poisons. Why would such a man spend so much effort to build a magic array, and build the Taiyuan garden just to commemorate a woman? Ah, a miserable scream interrupted Yun Sheng and Abandon. A doctor from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion was picking a 7-leaf purple ginseng. But when he touched the purple ginseng, his hand suddenly turned into a pool of pus. That speed was as if it had come into contact with concentrated sulfuric acid, corroding it in an instant. He wasn't the only one. Many warriors and magicians were screaming and kneeling on the ground. Their hands and feet touched the herbs, and they were all turned into rotten water. The rotten water quickly eroded a living person. Come back, no one is to act rashly. When the leaders of the major forces saw this, they immediately ordered their team members not to touch those herbs and flowers. Abandon was also shocked. His hands and feet instantly turned cold. If not for Yun Sheng holding him back just now, he was afraid that he would be, what the hell is this? Chengbai wiped his cold sweat. Oh my god. He almost had the idea of digging up a stalk of sage ginseng to make ginseng wine for his old man. That was a matter of life and death. And he almost turned into pus. What exactly is going on? These herbs are obviously not poisonous. The leader of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion wanted to cry. Just now, the Medicine Emperor Pavilion had the most people who went to pick the herbs. Just counting the doctors alone, 3 or 4 of them were corroded by these poisonous flowers. 2 magicians from the temple were also affected. The situation of the other forces was slightly better, but there were still less than 2 deaths. This seemingly beautiful garden suddenly became as scary as a mass grave. Yun Sheng walked to a pool of pus, checked the color and sniffed the smell. The herbs are not poisonous. Just now these people all touched the purple gold statues. If I'm not wrong, the problem lies with the purple gold statues of the magical beasts. There should be something on the statues. Once it comes into contact with the herbs in the garden, it will form a strong corrosive poison. The owner of this castle warned us that greed will be punished. Yun Sheng took a deep breath. Chapter 8:12. It was only then that everyone recalled that the magicians and warriors who had been corroded had indeed touched the purple gold statues in the corridor. If not for their leaders stopping them, some of them would have already stolen the statues. Rather than saying that these people had ended up like this because of a moment of greed, it would be better to say that the person who had designed this poison was vicious and had taken advantage of a sliver of greed in people's hearts to design this kind of cereal poison. Then, since I didn't touch those purple gold statues, does that mean I can dig up a few herbs? Chengbai asked recklessly. If you're not afraid of death, then try. However, I suggest that unless absolutely necessary, don't touch anything in this castle. Yun Sheng had felt a little strange ever since she had entered Taiyuan Castle. She had a feeling that something was watching her from some unknown corner of the castle. Along the way, she had a feeling that she was being watched. Chengbai shrank back. He didn't have the guts to do so. They had only stayed in Taiyuan Garden for a quarter of an hour, and more than 10 people had died. It was easy to imagine how ugly the expressions of the leaders were. At this moment, everyone had the same thought in their minds: to leave this damned place as soon as possible. Everyone, the living room is just up ahead. Ruyi will take his leave first. After finally leaving Taiyuan Flower Garden and reaching the end of the corridor, Ruyi from the Dharma Temple heaved a sigh of relief and led the group of people from the Dharma Temple and the Medicine Emperor Pavilion away. There were more than 100 living rooms in the castle. Just searching through them would take a long time. The other major forces also took their leave. Prince Dugu, I will also part with you for the time being. Let's meet again in the City Lord's Hall. Sister Lan decided to let her team members go their separate ways for the sake of efficiency. We'll meet at the City Lord's Hall too. Yunsheng nodded at Yi Baiming. Without waiting for his reply, she disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Yi Baiming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, it wasn't a big deal to part with Yunsheng for the time being. In any case, he and Yunsheng had the special binding magic of the unicorn. If she was in danger, he could rush over in time. Right now, he could do something of his own. Yi Baiming took a few steps and saw a special symbol in the shape of the Taiji 8 trigrams on a living room. He walked in. Zhou Qingchuan and several of the Everlasting Chamber of Commerce's martial artists were all waiting there. Baiming, according to your instructions, I have brought the item. Zhou Qingchuan waved his hand. Behind him, a few demon warriors who had disguised themselves as ordinary warriors knelt on the ground. Then he took out an exquisite box. As soon as he opened the box, a golden sparrow flew out from within. I'll have to trouble you this time, Brother Zhou. With this thing, it'll be much easier for me to find the 8 Desolations divine artifact. Yi Baiming asked Zhou Qingchuan to bring over the bird that the Everlasting Trading Firm had specially purchased for this divine artifact mission. This kind of bird was called Spirit Rhino, and it could detect the whereabouts of special treasures. No matter how well hidden the 8 Desolations divine artifact was, there would definitely be a trace of its aura left behind. As long as he used the Spirit Rhino Sparrow and his subordinates, Yi Baiming had a greater chance of finding the 8 Desolations divine artifact. As soon as the Spirit Rhino Sparrow flew out, it circled around in the air. Then it suddenly flapped its wings and rushed out of the living room. Looking at its posture, it was clear that it had found the trace of the divine artifact. There's no time to lose. We must act immediately. We must find the 8 Desolations divine artifact before other forces find it. Yi Baiming ordered. Several demon warriors and Zhou Qingchuan followed closely behind, passing through the living room. On the other side, after Dugu Xiu saw that Yunsheng and Yi Baiming had separated, he also led his subordinates to a secluded corner. Qibai, are you sure that your little guy can find the whereabouts of the 8 Desolations divine artifact? The main reason Dugu Xiu brought Madame Qibai to the Taiyuan ruins was because Madame Qibai's spirit snake could find the aura of the 8 Desolations divine artifact. Crown Prince, please believe me. The ancestor of the Ba Serpent clan once fought a life-and-death battle with experts who possessed the 8 Desolations divine artifact. My spirit snake hatched from an egg laid by the ancestor's spirit snake. As long as there is an 8 Desolations divine artifact in the castle, it will be able to find it. Madame Qibai's face was full of confidence. Earlier, because of Yunsheng, she and Crown Prince Dugu had almost fallen out. Madame Qibai was determined to mend their relationship. She wanted to let Crown Prince Dugu know that she was more suitable to be his woman than Yunsheng. After Madame Qibai finished speaking, she took out her little piccolo. As she chanted, the piccolo slowly transformed into a small emerald green snake. The small snake coiled around her wrist and let out a sizzling sound in the direction of the Taiyuan castle. It's in that direction. Crown Prince, follow this servant. When Madame Qibai heard this, she immediately beamed with joy. The spirit snake meant that it had found the location of the 8 Desolations divine artifact. Let's go. Dugu Xiu also ordered. His subordinates followed Madame Qibai through the living rooms. Ru Yi and a group of people from the temple were also walking through the living rooms at this time. He heard a flurry of footsteps and knew that the people from the other major factions must be on the move. Seeing this, the magicians behind Ru Yi couldn't help but become anxious. Lord Ru Yi, are we not going to chase after them? Why lower yourself to their level? Do you think that Elder Siming will really let them find the 8 Desolations divine artifact? Ru Yi's kind face had a hint of slyness. This time, the temple used the Starry Sky magic array to detect the whereabouts of the 8 Desolations divine artifact. Elder Siming Ji suffered a great loss because of this. Finding the whereabouts of the 8 Desolations divine artifact made the other 6 major factions very grateful to the temple. This also brought about a good reputation for the temple. In the past few years, with the rise of the mainland's elite camp and the little Ci Entong, the temple had suffered a great blow. Elder Siming Ji, you had always wanted the temple to regain the recognition of the mainland. Therefore this time he had set up this trap. Rui took out a magic crystal ball. Elder Siming, before we set off, we have already injected a portion of the starry sky power into this crystal ball. As long as we get close to the 8 Desolations divine artifact, this crystal ball will emit a dazzling light. We will find the 8 Desolations divine artifact before the other factions. There's no time to lose, let's move out immediately. Rui led a group of magicians and headed towards the depths of the Taiyuan castle. After Rui and the others left, Yun Sheng stepped out from the corner. She looked at the backs of the people who were leaving with a faint smile. She pretended to be deep in thought and stroked her chin. It seems that everyone came prepared. Everyone wants to find the 8 Desolations divine artifact, right? Then I'll let you guys find it to your heart's content. Girls who are out of books can go and read a few of Fuzi's old books. Reborn Socialite, I'm the Biggest, Reborn Space Farming, Unlimited Army, and The Strongest Abandoned Immortal. Chapter 8:13. Yun Sheng chuckled with a sly look on her face. I don't have anything else, but I have a lot of divine weapons. I have 2 out of 8. With divine weapons I can do whatever I want. Yun Sheng took out the immortal holy grail from the beast language ring. Little Queen. Yun Sheng summoned the little water spirit queen. Biased master, you've finally summoned me. The little water fairy queen's face was full of joy. However, she immediately frowned and her beautiful face was full of displeasure. Where is this place? The little queen hates this place. The water elves were the kindest and most peace-loving branch of the elves. As the queen of the elves, the little water elven queen was much more sensitive to any foul or bloody smell than humans and ordinary elves. What's wrong? Yun Sheng didn't understand what the little queen meant. In the words of the human race, this castle was cursed and experienced a terrible disaster. The little water spirit queen also felt the resentment, but she didn't know where it came from. You carry the holy grail and fly around the castle until I summon you. Remember, be careful and hide. You must attract the attention of as many people as possible, but you must be careful not to be caught. If you succeed, you will get 10 jars of elven fruit wine. Yun Sheng was also trying to make use of this opportunity. This time Divine Wind had asked Huiyu to bring a lot of elven fruit wine and elven elixirs over. Okay. The little elven queen was immediately energized when she heard that there would be wine to drink. She was a beginner king-level figure. She didn't fight head-on. She was still very good at hiding. The little queen hugged the holy grail and thought of the elven fruit wine to drink. She even hummed happily along the way and wandered around the castle. Seeing that the little queen had left, Yun Sheng stuck out her tongue and muttered to herself, Night Fox, this time we are even. Yun Sheng remembered very clearly that Yi Baiming used her to steal Li Xiao's purple gold oregon. This time, Yun Sheng was going to let him have a taste of what it felt like to have a duck fly away from his mouth. When the little water fairy queen appeared with the immortal holy grail, Yi Baiming, Du Guxiu, Rui, and the others, who were originally rushing towards a certain direction in the castle, had different reactions from the spiritual sparrows and treasures in their hands. The 3 of them were puzzled. Looking at the reactions of their respective spirit sparrows and artifacts, the 8 Desolates divine artifact seemed to be in another direction. Let's go back. The 3 of them immediately changed directions and rushed towards the little water sprite queen. However, when they were halfway there, the spirit sparrow and the treasure reacted again. This time, it showed that the 8 Desolates divine artifact was moving in a completely different direction. What's going on? Why is the artifact walking back and forth? Rui led his group of mages back and forth a few times. They were mages in the first place, and their physiques were weaker than warriors. In the past few days they had been so worried that they couldn't even meditate properly. They ran back and forth in the huge castle dozens of times. Every time they ran nearby, the magic crystal ball would have a different reaction. This feeling was as if the 8 Desolates divine artifact had grown legs of its own. Of course, the artifact couldn't have grown legs of its own. The only possibility was that someone was carrying the artifact. Thinking of this, Rui didn't dare to be negligent. He decided to believe in the instructions of Elder Siming's magic crystal ball, and continued to follow the 8 Desolates divine artifact tirelessly. He swore that he would definitely snatch the artifact before the others. Yun Sheng relied on the immortal Holy Grail to temporarily get rid of the major forces including Ru Yi. In the beast language ring, the other 8 Desolate's divine artifact, the summoning demon's hand, was still quiet. Yun Sheng thought for a while and decisively abandoned more than 100 living rooms. She also thought that even if the city lord of Taiyuan had the 8 Desolate's divine artifact, he must have hidden it in the most important place. Yun Sheng didn't dare to delay and ran all the way. After passing through the living rooms, she rushed straight to the city lord's palace. In front of her was the outer palace of the city lord's palace. Yun Sheng jumped a few times and entered the outer palace. In the outer palace it was very quiet. It was obvious that the other forces hadn't arrived yet. This was also thanks to Yun Sheng's earlier actions to confuse the public. However, what made Yun Sheng disappointed was that she was already standing in the outer palace. However, in the beast language ring there was no reaction from the summoning demon at all. Or could it be that the 8 Desolate's divine artifact wasn't hidden in the city lord's palace? Yun Sheng looked around the outer palace but didn't find anything. She then walked into the inner palace, which was next to the outer palace. The city lord's palace was divided into 2 sections. Outside was the meeting room and inside was the city lord's bedroom. The bedroom was further divided into 2 sections. One section was the bed, and the other was the meditation and daily training area. Yun Sheng looked at the meditation area of the city lord. The summoning demon's hand still didn't respond. Still nothing. Could it be that the 8 Barons' legendary weapon is hidden in the underground palace? Yun Sheng remembered that the jade tablet at the entrance clearly stated that the teleportation portal to the underground palace was in the inner palace of the city lord's palace. There was a teleportation portal in the inner palace. However, this teleportation portal had been there for too long. Not to mention the magic power, even the magic seal script on it had become blurred. Yun Sheng checked the magic seal script on the teleportation portal to see if she could find any clues. However, just as Yun Sheng was checking, a fatal thunderflash and a wind sickle came towards her from the front and back. Yun Sheng abruptly bowed and rolled on the ground, dodging the 2 spells that were aimed at her from the front and back. I didn't expect you to be able to dodge our attacks. Yun Sheng, you're quite capable. A cold laugh came from a corner of the inner palace. 2 people walked out from the direction of the curtains. They were the 2 sorcerers from Zhou State. This voice, the 2 sorcerers who had mysteriously appeared, took off their masks. No wonder I always felt that you were hostile towards me. Sighed Chunlian, jealousy is a disease. You really are sick. You and Lu Tongtian were actually willing to join Zhou State and work for others. Yun Sheng shrugged. She had forgotten that Chunlian was also from Zhou State. Since Keling could return to Tangyuan after betraying the elite camp, Chunlian, a woman who would do anything for her own benefits, would naturally return to Zhou State after losing the mission to find the legendary weapon. However, Yun Sheng didn't expect that Chunlian would give up searching around the living room and come directly to the city lord's palace. I'm the crown princess of Zhou State. There's nothing wrong with returning to Zhou State. However, you actually managed to come here alone. However, you're also seeking your own death by coming here. Without Yi Baiming, that poison brat, and Du Guxiu, I'd like to see how you're going to deal with us. Chunlian had always wanted to take revenge on Yun Sheng. Unfortunately, she hadn't found the opportunity. Chapter 8:14. Chunlian had always wanted to plot against Yun Sheng, but she didn't have the chance to do so. Now she had a rare opportunity. She was sure that Yun Sheng wouldn't be able to escape from her and Lu Tongtian. At this moment in Chunlian's eyes, Yun Sheng was already a dead person. Oh, you really think so? Yun Sheng smiled. What are you smiling for? You're about to die, yet you're still smiling. Seeing Yun Sheng's face, Chunlian was jealous and hateful. It was this face that seduced Yi Baiming, causing him to be completely infatuated with her and ignore her. I'm laughing at your childishness. Don't think that only you two know how to hide your identities. You have to know the same trick that you two used. I've already gotten tired of it when I was in Skywing City. Yun Sheng was mocking Chunlian and Lu Tongtian, imitating her in Donghuang Linger's method of Flame Emperor. As she spoke, she clapped her hands. Suddenly, a few warriors rushed in from the outer palace. Seeing those warriors, Chen Lianer and Lu Tongtian's expressions changed slightly. "Aren't you people from the Hunters Guild? How is this possible?" These warriors, including the only martial emperor in the Hunters Guild, all stood behind Yun Shang and respectfully greeted. "Vice Guild Leader. XX Crown Princess, you're still the same as before. Your chest isn't big and your brain isn't good. Don't you know that my master is the guest elder of the Hunters Guild and my second uncle is the guild leader of the continent's top heaven expedition hunting corps? Tell me, in this kind of situation, will the Hunters Guild help you or help me?" Yi Baiming wasn't the only one who had secretly hidden the everlasting Chamber of Commerce's power. Yun Shang had also made ample preparations before heading to the Taiyuan ruins. First, she contacted second uncle and asked him to invite a martial Grand Emperor expert who had a close personal relationship with Yun Ba to hide in the Hunters Guild. Then, she selected a few devil warriors and hid them in the Hunters Guild in Zhou State. Yun Shang had prepared all of this in secret without anyone noticing. Facing the sarcastic Yun Shang and the hunters behind her, Yi Zichen was stunned. Chen Lianer's face paled. She didn't think that Yun Shang would have a trick up her sleeve. If it was just Yun Shang alone, she and Lu Tongtian would definitely be able to kill Yun Shang. However, there were a few more strange devil warriors and a martial emperor expert. With these people added together, it was still unknown who would be able to kill who between her and Yun Shang. Why did she always lose to Yun Shang? Whether it was the man or the mission, she had lost so miserably. "Yun Shang, today either you die or I die," Chen Lianer said word by word. "Chen Lianer, you are not my opponent. Not now, and definitely not in the future." Yun Shang also raised her magic scepter. Chen Lianer had plotted against her many times, especially just now. If she hadn't sensed the breathing of other people in the inner hall, she would have been killed under the pincer attack of Lu Tongtian and Chen Lianer. This woman was narrow-minded. Leaving her alive would only cause trouble in the future. "Haha, is that so? Then we'll only know after we fight." Chen Lianer's eyes were filled with hatred. She slowly took out a bracelet from her storage necklace and put it on her hand. She would kill Yun Shang at all costs. The moment the bracelet was taken out, Yun Shang's beast language ring trembled and her summoning hand trembled. 8 Baron Divine Artifact. A thought flashed through Yun Shang's mind. Yun Shang's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at the ancient bracelet on Chen Lianer's hand. There was no mistake. It really was the magical bracelet of the 8 Baron Divine Artifact. It was left behind by the first magical god of the temple. Yun Shang's heart thumped uncontrollably. The 8 Baron Divine Artifact in the Taiyuan castle had not been found yet, but another 8 Baron Divine Artifact had suddenly appeared. Although the divine power of this divine artifact was much weaker than the other divine artifacts, it was still very powerful. But Yun Shang still remembered the legend of the magical bracelet. It was a mysterious bracelet that contained endless magic power. It could allow the wearer to have the terrifying power of the first magical god. But Yun Shang was sure that the magical bracelet on Chen Lianer's hand did not emit such a terrifying magic wave. Yun Shang looked at it and found that there was a similar soul stone on the magical bracelet. Her heart skipped a beat as she suddenly thought of something. It couldn't be that coincidental, right? The soul stone on Chen Lianer's bracelet was almost exactly the same as the enigma stone in her beast speech ring that contained powerful magic. She instantly understood. It was no wonder Chen Lianer was willing to do anything, even selling her body, to obtain that enigma stone from the Skywing Tower. It turned out that it was used to repair the magical bracelet. But Chen Lianer had never imagined that Steward Chu would secretly swap it out and give her a fake soul stone. Thus, the magical bracelet's power was greatly reduced. After understanding all this, Yun Shang decided that she had to obtain the magical bracelet no matter what. Chen Lianer was completely unaware that one of the 8 Baron Divine Artifacts that she had painstakingly searched for was currently on her arm. "Yun Shang, today either you die or I die." After putting on the magical bracelet, Chen Lianer's magic power rapidly increased by a large margin. She was originally a sky magus, and after putting on the magical bracelet, she directly broke through to become a Saint Law Overlord. With a shout, Chen Lianer and Lu Tongtian charged toward Yun Shang side by side. Almost at the same time, The members of the Hunters Guild behind Yunsheng also split up and attacked the two. "Leave Chen Lianer to me." Yunsheng flapped her magic wings and nimbly dodged a wind scythe that Chen Lianer released. Lu Tongtian was also quite capable. With his strength alone, he was actually able to barely block the martial emperor and the other magic warriors. Yunsheng and Chen Lianer leaped into the air. Chen Lianer was a wind magus, so her agility was unparalleled. Yunsheng had the help of Night Charm and a Wind Soul Stone, so her agility was slightly higher than Chen Lianer's. The two began to fight in the inner hall. In an instant, wind scythes flew everywhere, and fireballs hit the curtains and decorations in the hall. Flames raged and smoke rose into the air. On the other side, Lu Tongtian and the martial emperor were also locked in battle. The magic and qi released by the two caused the city lord's hall to suffer. The walls collapsed, and the entire inner hall shook. Yunsheng could not help but think to herself, the magical bracelet really does have some secrets. "Hey, Skywing expansion," Yunsheng suddenly called out. Hearing this, Chen Lianer's heart shook, and she subconsciously turned her head. Since the soul stone appeared in Chen Lianer's hands, it meant that Skywing expansion's death was related to her. Yunsheng took advantage of this and suddenly called out Skywing expansion's name. Chen Lianer was already feeling guilty about killing Skywing expansion. Hearing this shout, she was not paying attention, and Yunsheng took advantage of this opening. In the blink of an eye, Yunsheng had finished chanting. Chapter 8:15. In terms of strength, Yunsheng was only a sky magician. Chen Lianer, who had obtained the magic god bracelet, had already reached the level of a saint-level magician. In the magician realm, every level of difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even if they were both high-level magicians, the effect of a grand sanctuary magician and a sky magician would be very different. Therefore, Yunsheng decided not to use nature magicians to deal with Chen Lianer. The moment Chen Lianer was fooled, a wave of dark magic flowed out of Yunsheng's body like a tide. Dark thorns. Cracks appeared on the white marble floor, and dark thorns that were as sharp as blades rose from the ground. "Yunsheng, you're courting death." Chen Lianer turned around and realized that there was nothing behind her. Only then did she realize that she had fallen into Yunsheng's trap. She knew that after Yunsheng learned from a dark gold teacher, she didn't even need to chant. Because she couldn't dodge in time, her foot was pierced by a dark thorn, and a piece of flesh was scraped off. The magic soul stone on the magic god bracelet on Chen Lianer's hand flashed. Chen Lianer actually managed to use her powerful wind-type magic to avoid the thorns at the critical moment. Even so, Chen Lianer's legs and body were already covered with scratches. She could only barely dodge to a relatively safe place. That place was the magic array that led to the underground palace in the city lord's hall. A magic array that seemed to have lost its magic power. Yunsheng wouldn't give Chen Lianer a chance to dodge. She chanted a second time. Bang bang bang. The dark thorns were like bullets from a machine gun, piercing through the magic array. Many soul stones on the magic scepter flickered with a shocking light. Then a raging sea of fire began to burn. Only then did Chen Lianer realize how terrifying the elven hellfire was. Yunsheng's elven hellfire was not something that ordinary magic flames could compare to. Ordinary water magicians couldn't extinguish it at all. Not only that, when it burned, it would be further consumed and corroded by magic shields. With the sound of spikes rising from the ground and the heat from the blazing flames, a third of the entire city lord's palace had been destroyed by Yunsheng's magic attack. Chen Lianer had never imagined that she would be trapped to death by Yunsheng. The air was filled with Yunsheng's tyrannical dark magic fluctuations. The fire and rocks brushed past Chen Lianer's face. She no longer had her usual seductive and noble appearance. In comparison, Lu Tongtian's fight with the martial emperor paled in comparison. Tisk, so this is a competition between magicians. Many people had already arrived at the city lord's palace. The duel between the mages in the city lord hall made everyone who had just arrived click their tongues in amazement. When Cheng Bai and the others saw Chen Lianer and Lu Tongtian, and then looked at the Zhou state hunters surrounding Lu Tongtian, they were confused. After thinking about it for a while, he immediately understood. Cheng Bai couldn't help but curse in his heart. What kind of lousy team was this? Not only did Chen Lianer and Lu Tongtian sneak in, They even planted Yunshang's spy. He and Zhou Xiao were being played like monkeys. Zhou Xiao, what do you think? Changbai and Bu Zhou secretly watched from the side. No rush. With such a big commotion, Baiming is so nervous about Yunshang. He will definitely rush over. Moreover, there are still no clues about the Octoterra divine artifact. Bu Zhou paid attention to Yunshang and Chan Lianer's duel, and didn't step forward to stop it. For the warriors of Wushuan Wuji School, this was the first time they had seen such a high-level magic duel. The duels of the warriors in the dojo were more exciting than flashy. Just in terms of visual effects, the dark thorns all over the ground and the blazing elven hellfire were much more exciting than the warriors punching each other and kicking each other. However, Bu Zhou also understood that in a duel between magicians, especially magicians of similar strength, the final outcome would be a competition of endurance and magic power. Yunshang's attacks were fierce, but he was afraid that she wouldn't have enough magic power. However, Bu Zhou didn't know that Yunshang had a 5-elemental magic spirit. Her magic power wasn't inferior to Chan Lianer's, who had the magical bracelet. In comparison, the duel between Lu Tongtian and that warrior was much more inferior. You guys, why aren't you helping? Lu Tongtian saw that Chan Lianer was being forced to retreat by Yunshang. He himself was being entangled by the martial emperor and couldn't escape. In his anger, he roared at Changbai and the others. Haha, that's funny. Help. Earlier on at the fork in the road our people were attacked, but I didn't see you guys helping. Besides, what help? Yunshang is a member of our Wushuan Wuji school. Yi Baiming's woman. Compared to her, Zhou State is nothing, Changbai spat. In front of his brother, what was the rotten Zhou State's government? Changbai's words almost made Lu Tongtian choke to death. Lu Tongtian still wanted to say something fierce, but who knew that the martial emperor's leg would sweep over, solidly kicking his magic wooden helmet. How could a martial emperor's leg be so easy to endure? Lu Tongtian only felt a sharp pain in his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? Why are they fighting? The huge commotion in the city lord's palace had already alarmed the people from the other factions who were still searching for the Octoterra divine artifact outside. Even Yi Baiming and the others, who had been fooled by the little water sprite queen, heard the sounds of fighting in the inner palace and rushed to the inner palace. Yunshang, I want you dead. Chan Lianer was chanting when Yi Baiming arrived. She had never been in such a sorry state before. She was crazily chanting and the magical bracelet in her hand emitted a blood-red light. Beneath her feet, there was a huge explosion and the entire city lord's palace shook violently. Lianer, don't use Nightmare Dragon Storm. Otherwise, the entire city lord's palace will be destroyed. Lu Tongtian saw Chan Lianer's actions and felt his insides crack. He didn't expect Chan Lianer to risk her own life to fight to the death with Yunshang. After repairing the magical bracelet, Chan Lianer realized that she could reach the magic realm of a saint-level magical emperor. She begged Lu Tongtian to enter the magic forest and help her find a super magical fruit. Lu Tongtian didn't agree at first because he knew the power of a super magical fruit was not to be underestimated. Could even destroy a small village. Even Lu Tongtian himself didn't dare to rashly learn how to use a super magical fruit. He also knew Chan Lianer's temperament. He was afraid that Chan Lianer would do something extreme, but Chan Lianer didn't care. She even promised that as long as Lu Tongtian agreed, she would marry him after completing this divine artifact quest. Lu Tongtian couldn't resist the temptation and finally agreed to Chan Lianer. In the saint-level region of the magic forest, he found a super wind magical fruit suitable for Chan Lianer on a wind magical tree. That magical fruit contained a super magical fruit with terrifying power called Nightmare Dragon Storm. Chapter 8:16. According to the memory of the magician in the magic fruit, if she triggered the flood dragon storm, not to mention a Taiyuan castle, even the entire Taiyuan ruins would be razed to the ground. Yunsheng also realized Chan Lianer's madness. Under the effect of the magic bracelet, countless wind magic elements rushed to Chan Lianer's body. Her whole body was surrounded by magic elements. The wind magic elements gathered together and formed the shape of a green wind dragon. The dragon shape was still expanding. It was more than 20 meters tall and emitted terrifying magic waves. It was about to take shape in front of Yun Shang. It opened its huge mouth, as if it was going to swallow Yun Shang at any time. Yun Shang looked so weak in front of the flood dragon. Damn it, this woman is crazy. Yi Baiming, Du Guxiu, and the others who had just arrived happened to witness this shocking scene. The two of them did not hesitate. They rushed to Yun Shang in a flash. The loud sound of the wind was incessant. The whole palace trembled, as if the castle was about to be shattered. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu stood on the left and right, sandwiching Yun Shang in the middle. The two of them looked at each other and saw the hostility in each other's eyes. Lord Baiming, why don't we make a bet to see who will defeat this flood dragon first? Okay, as Prince Dugu said, let's have a competition. Yi Baiming raised his eyebrows evilly. Fighting energy was dense on his right arm. The winner can marry her. Du Guxiu smiled. His eagle-like eyes were full of provocation. Yi Baiming frowned. The fighting energy around him burned like flames. He spat out a few words. Du Guxiu, I should have warned you. She is the only one I won't let go of. Since you won't let me, then this prince will snatch her. Du Guxiu looked up to the sky and laughed. He suddenly jumped up and rushed toward the flood dragon like a cannonball. Yi Baiming did not show any weakness. Black scales grew wildly on his left and right arms. He roared and rushed toward the flood dragon at the same time. Seeing Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu's actions, Chen Lianer's heart, which was already filled with hatred for Yun Shang, was completely twisted. She shouted, Yun Shang, why is it Yun Shang again? How am I inferior to her? You blind men, why do you only like Yun Shang? I will tear you to pieces, no one can escape. She desperately urged her magic power, and the figure of the hurricane dragon that was still in the process of forming became clearer. The dragon's body began to roll. The dragon's body rolled and a hurricane was forming. The ground trembled and the air was filled with the aura of death. Each and every one of you, do you think I'm dead? Yun Shang was furious. This damn night fox and Du Guxiu, why did they blindly join in? Super magic, very powerful, right? If it was interrupted, so what if it was powerful? Spacetime prohibition. Yun Shang raised her magic scepter. A wave of dark magic quickly gathered around her. A dark light fell on the flood dragon in front of her. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu's bodies stopped in midair. The flood dragon also stopped. This is the moment. Yun Shang instantly moved in front of the flood dragon. In her hands, water and fire magic elements crazily multiplied. The profound lightning vortex sizzled. Go! Without any hesitation, Yun Shang sent the lightning vortex into the flood dragon's mouth. Yun Shang made full use of the 10 or so seconds of time restriction. In the eyes of the crowd, they saw a dramatic scene. The flood dragon let out a sharp cry. The profound lightning vortex tore the flood dragon apart. The flood dragon, which was more than 20 meters tall, was torn to pieces by this terrifying magic. As all of this had happened too suddenly, the crowd was simply unable to distinguish what had happened during this period of time. No, Chen Lianer let out a tragic cry. The moment the flood dragon's back was torn apart, her body couldn't withstand too much wind magic. Like a balloon, she burst into pieces. Until the moment of her death, Chen Lianer never thought that she would die under Yun Shang's magic. This magic was the lowest level of spacetime magic. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu, who were already flying in midair, were also thrown off by the wind magic and the profound lightning vortex. The moment Chen Lianer's body was torn apart, the magic god bracelet on her arm flew out. Yun Shang saw it clearly. She teleported and was about to snatch the bracelet. Watch your step. Two voices were heard. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu charged toward Yun Shang. It turned out that when Yun Shang landed, she landed right on the magic array of the city lord's palace. Yun Shang lowered her head to take a look and was shocked. She clearly saw that this magic array had already lost its magic power. But at this time, the black, mud-like magic power was surging toward the magic array. The entire magic array suddenly came to life. The blurry magic runes became clear. It was like an old stone mill that hadn't been used for many years was suddenly moved. Creaking sounds came from under their feet. This magic array that had already lost its magic power suddenly shone with magic light. Inside the magic array, Yun Shang, Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu were all enveloped by the magic light. The entire magic array suddenly let out a cracking sound. Yun Shang and the others who were inside the magic array felt their feet miss a step. They fell down like kites with a broken string. Yun Shang! Beiming! Crown Prince! There was a series of exclamations. The cracked magic array was still expanding. The ground of the city lord's palace was cracking as if it had been hit by a heavy blow. Countless cracks appeared on the ground. They grew wantonly like withered vines on an old tree. Taiyuan Castle was about to collapse. Not good. Everyone, evacuate from Taiyuan Castle immediately. Seeing Yun Shang and the others being swallowed up, the leaders of the major forces panicked. They hadn't found the divine artifact yet, but under the current situation, the castle would collapse if they stayed any longer. They could only withdraw from the castle immediately. After the castle collapsed, they could enter the castle to search for the three people. Sister Lan, don't stop me. I'm going to find Yun Shang. Abandon's eyes were bloodshot. He hated himself for being too slow and not being able to pull Yun Shang back. Ignoring the falling stone beams and debris above his head, he was about to charge towards the spell formation. Gu Feng had left. If Yun Shang also left this time, he would be the only one left. Abandon, listen to me. Yun Shang is a good person. She has Yi Beiming and Du Guxiu to protect her. She will be fine. Lan only knew that she had to protect her team members as much as possible. Disregarding Abandon's struggle, Lan and the other mage grabbed Abandon and fled out of the castle. Yunqing's fate was uncertain. Lan only hoped that she would be able to escape this calamity. Chapter 8:17. It didn't matter whether they could find the divine artifact or not. At the very least, she had to escape with the rest of the people. Roar! A terrible roar of a beast came from the corridor. It's the purple gold beast. Everyone was stunned. Just as they were about to flee, all of the violet gold condor statues in the magical beast corridor suddenly came to life. 20 purple gold magical beasts were waiting in the magical beast corridor, eyeing them covetously, blocking the exit. How could this be? Why are all these beasts alive? When it rains, it pours. Lan and the others didn't expect to encounter so many beasts at such a critical moment. For some unknown reason, these magical beasts that had turned into purple gold statues had not eaten for more than 500 years. At this moment, their stomachs were rumbling with hunger. Whatever they encountered would be eaten alive by them. If they wanted to escape, it was bound to be another fight. The castle shook even more violently. Lan and the others only had a dignified look in their eyes. Outside the Taiyuan castle, the third main summoner and several summoners from the Temple of Dharma watched from afar as the castle collapsed bit by bit. A smile appeared on their faces. This Taiyuan castle will be the burial place of the 6 major forces. It seems that the people of the 6 major forces will not return this time. It's all thanks to the Emperor Zhao in Red's strategy. Those idiots really thought that they could find the divine artifact here. Fools! 500 years ago, the Taiyuan castle buried the treacherous Taiyuan. Today, let this castle completely bury the elites of the 6 major forces. The Zhao state was very ambitious. They had always wanted to weaken or even destroy the other major forces and make the Zhao state a unique existence on the mainland. But they never had the chance. Until Ji Feng succeeded the position of the Emperor Zhao in Red. As the greatest and most talented Emperor Zhao in the Zhao state for more than 1,000 years, Pope Ji had been painstakingly running the Zhao state for many years. Opportunity finally favored the Zhao state. The Dutian blood realm had changed, and the Dutian blood seal could collapse at any time. The magicians and warriors on the continent became restless. They proposed to search for the lost Octoterra artifact. The Emperor Zhao knew that the temple fair would use the Starry Sky magic array to search for the divine artifact. He had already started planning today's plot. However, what surprised the Emperor Zhao in Red even more was that the Starry Sky magic array of the Temple of Dharma had identified the ruins of Taiyuan as the place where the 8 barren artifacts were unearthed. After the Zhao state received the news, they pretended to form an alliance with the Grand Emperor and headed to the Taiyuan ruins. These summoners who had left and returned were the people from the Zhao state who had been forced to leave at the Sky Sea line. They had pretended to retreat in order to lure the other 6 forces into the Taiyuan ruins and fall into their trap. However, they didn't expect that even though the Zhao state had set up an inescapable trap along the way, the people from the 6 forces would still be able to pass through the Taiyuan ruins and the lost track. Fortunately, the Emperor Zhao still had a trick up his sleeve, and that was the purple gold demonic beast statues in the Taiyuan castle. The purple gold statue was also known as the purple gold curse. When the Taiyuan ruins were first built, the Emperor Zhao in red used the purple gold curse to seal the demonic beasts in the Taiyuan castle. Only a master summoner could seal the purple gold demonic beasts. After the people from the 6 forces entered the Taiyuan castle, the 3rd master summoner, who had been hiding in the dark, unsealed the purple gold curse and sealed the entrance to the Taiyuan castle. Coincidentally, Yun Sheng and Chun Lianer had a conflict in the castellan's palace. The castle was on the verge of collapsing, and the people from the 6 forces were forced to retreat. However, they were already at the end of their rope. What awaited them were hungry purple gold demonic beasts. But Master Summoner, are you sure there are no divine artifacts in the castle? If there aren't, why would the magic array in the temple indicate that this place is here? One of the summoners was confused. Impossible. The Taiyuan ruins were already searched by the Zhao state more than 500 years ago. Everyone in the Zhao state knows this, the 3rd master summoner said contemptuously. It wasn't just the Taiyuan castle. Even every house in the Taiyuan ruins had been searched thoroughly. Needless to say, the Taiyuan castle was searched thoroughly. The 3rd master summoner was sure that there were no divine artifacts in the Taiyuan ruins. This time it was all thanks to the temple. The elite camp, the later Qin, the Zhou state, the Hunters Guild, Tang Yuan, the Immortal Abode, the Medicine Emperor's Pavilion, and so on. Those who were regarded as the most talented magicians and warriors of the major forces must die. Especially the elite camp, the later Qin, the Zhou state, and the Tang Yuan. The most talented princes and princes of these countries had all died in the Taiyuan ruins. The 3rd master summoner was even more pleased with himself. At this moment the sky darkened. The purple cloud in the sky seemed to have lowered by a few inches. The entire Taiyuan mountains seemed even more depressing and gloomy. The 3rd master summoner and more than a dozen Zhao state summoners looked at the crumbling Taiyuan castle. No one rushed out. Some parts of the castle were already on fire. The fire was like a ghost in the dark night. It was a ghastly sight. The 3rd master summoner waited patiently. As long as he waited until dawn, the castle would be completely destroyed. The magicians and warriors inside should be fighting a bloody battle with the 20 purple gold statues right now. The broken stone walls and the ferocious magic beasts made the whole magic beast corridor filled with the pungent smell of blood. The corridor had turned into a road of blood. In the Taiyuan castle, when the magic array broke, Yun Sheng suddenly fell into the magic array. In an instant, Yun Sheng was dragged down by a mass of unknown magic force. She tried to use the magic wings to break free from this magic force. However, no matter how Yun Sheng chanted or used her Dharma soul, her body continued to descend. It was as if she was falling into an endless hell. Darkness, endless darkness without a trace of light. She only felt a bone-chilling cold wind beside her. Her body continued to fall, and in the sound of the wind, she once again heard that familiar voice. "You're here. I'm here. Save us." Her consciousness suddenly became clear. Save us?" The initial fear slowly receded. Yun Sheng blurted out, "You? Who are you? Are you calling for me?" When she entered the Taiyuan castle, Yun Sheng heard a strange voice. Now she heard this voice again. This voice sounded sorrowful, fearful, and a little desperate. "I'm from Taiyuan." Yun Sheng was about to ask again, when suddenly a force hit her. She only felt that her whole body had fallen into a pair of broad arms. Chapter 8:18. Yun Sheng was already very familiar with this pair of arms. She came at the wrong time. She almost heard that person's words clearly. Yun Sheng despised him in her heart and rolled her eyes. Looking up, Yun Sheng happened to see Yi Baiming's beautiful chin. "Night Fox." Yun Sheng was stunned. She suddenly remembered Yi Baiming's anxious voice the moment the magic array collapsed. "Why are you talking to yourself? I was almost scared to death by you." Yi Baiming gave Yunsheng a knock on her head. God knew how terrified Yi Baiming was when Yunsheng fell into the magic array. He seemed to have returned to that day in Celestial Fox's tomb when Yunsheng suddenly disappeared. He thought that he was going to lose Yunsheng forever. That kind of uncontrollable fear was like a black hole that swallowed everything. Yi Baiming almost fell into the state of beast blood frenzy again. With the experience of Celestial Fox's tomb last time, even though Yi Baiming was at the edge of the magic array and could still escape, he still chose to fall into the magic array with Yunsheng. After falling into the magic array, Yi Baiming controlled the speed of his fall while sensing Yunsheng's location. Finally, he found Yunsheng's aura. However, Yunsheng was at a loss. She asked in a daze, "Who are you guys?" This made Yi Baiming almost go berserk. However, fortunately, the little wild cat was in his arms. This time she would not disappear for no reason. No matter what was under the magic array, even if it was hell, he would accompany her to break out. Before flirting, "Shouldn't you recognize where you are?" A dry voice interrupted Yunsheng and Yi Baiming's short reunion. Duguxiu was actually just a few feet away. His eyes were filled with displeasure and jealousy as he stared at Yi Baiming and Yunsheng. TSK, he was just one step away. Only the heavens knew how envious Duguxiu was of Yi Baiming being hugged by a beauty. When Yunsheng fell into the magic array, Duguxiu and Yi Baiming were standing in the same position. Both of them reacted the same way, wanting to save Yunsheng. However, Duguxiu had been standing close to Chen Lianer at that time. When Chen Lianer's body was crushed by the wind magic, he was also affected. In just a few breaths, Yi Baiming beat him to it. "Duguxiu, why are you here?" Yunsheng still did not understand the situation. She poked her head out of Yi Baiming's arms. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. These two guys were mortal enemies wherever they went. Right now the situation was unclear. She had to make these two angry lions stop fighting for the time being. After Yi Baiming and Duguxiu appeared, the mysterious voice disappeared. "It seems like we're reaching the bottom." Yi Baiming and Duguxiu's fighting spirit were strong. Relying on their fighting spirit, the two of them forcibly stabilized their bodies. The two of them felt that the speed of their descent was slowing down. They could faintly see light below. They recalled the jade tablet at the entrance of Taiyuan Castle. Below the magic array, it was very likely that the underground palace built by the city lord of Taiyuan for his retirement. After a slight sound, Yi Baiming's feet finally touched the ground that he had not touched for a long time. The darkness disappeared. The three of them were already in a spacious stone room. The moment the three of them landed, the original black hole above the stone room disappeared. The surroundings were warm. An illuminating magic array operated steadily at the side. "Night Fox, put me down." Yunsheng struggled gently. She was already somewhat immune to Yi Baiming's embrace. She had to admit that Night Fox's arms were very safe. Just now Yunsheng shamelessly thought that if there was really an endless abyss below, if she fell to her death, there would still be Yi Baiming to cushion her. Of course, Yunsheng only dared to think about this in her heart. Duguxiu's gaze was as sharp as a knife, making Yunsheng feel awkward. Yi Baiming put Yunsheng down, but he was still wary of Duguxiu. No matter how he moved, he used his body to block Duguxiu to prevent him from getting too close to Yunsheng. Letting the wolf guard against thieves and Duguxiu was Yi Baiming's strategy. The place where the three of them were was very spacious. "It's really an underground palace." Yunsheng looked at the surrounding walls and found a rough diagram of the underground palace. From the map of the underground palace, the scale of the underground palace was not small. There were many tombs. It was originally intended for the descendants of the city lord of Taiyuan to use. But unexpectedly, not long after the construction of the underground palace, Taiyuan City was destroyed overnight. The underground palace also became empty because of this. Beside the diagram of the underground palace, there was an illusion engraved. This illusion also revealed why the Prince of Taiyuan wanted to build Taiyuan City, in a dangerous place like Taiyuan Mountain. In the early years of the city lord of Taiyuan, he once had a crown princess, who was his first wife. There was an accident in the Penglai Palace. In order to cover for the Prince of Taiyuan, the crown princess was killed by the Zhao state. The grief-stricken Prince of Taiyuan fled to Taiyuan Mountain with the body of his beloved concubine. It was only because the crown princess had traveled to Taiyuan Mountain in her early years and praised the local scenery that the Prince of Taiyuan worked hard to build Taiyuan City. He also placed the bones of his beloved concubine in a tomb in the underground palace. If the diagram of the underground palace is correct, there should be at least one tomb in this underground palace with a coffin. Although Yi Baiming had a cold temperament, he couldn't help but sigh when he saw the love between the city lord of Taiyuan and his beloved concubine. However, now was not the time to be in love. It was fine if it was just the two of them, but they even brought Du Guxiu along. What was this? He didn't want to be trapped in this damned place with a little wild cat. The city lord of Taiyuan is a man who values friendship and righteousness. If he really has the 8 wasteland artifact, I'm afraid he will put it in his most cherished place. Du Guxiu didn't forget his purpose of coming to the ruins of Taiyuan. The tomb of the crown princess, Yunsheng muttered. According to the diagram of the underground palace, the tomb of the crown princess should be next door to this stone chamber. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu's eyes lit up. The tomb where the 3 of them were in was prepared for themselves by the city of Taiyuan in the early years. However, due to the accident in Taiyuan City, although the Taiyuan died, the whereabouts of his body were unknown. Therefore, the tomb had been empty. Several major forces spent so much effort to enter the Taiyuan castle and almost demolished the entire Taiyuan castle. In the end, they found nothing. When they thought that the 8 wasteland artifact might be in the next room, the 3 of them couldn't help but be excited. Thinking of the 8 wasteland artifact, Yunsheng suddenly remembered something. Where's Chen Lianer? Yunsheng said as she glanced at Yi Baiming. The backlash of the super magic was very strong. Chen Lianer was torn to pieces by the magic of the hurricane dragon. She should be dead. Chen Lianer was Night Fox's childhood sweetheart. Night Fox should be sad, right? Inexplicably, Yunsheng felt a little uneasy. Why did she care so much about Night Fox's thoughts? It's the weekend. I know a lot of people are floating out. Money, all kinds of money roll. I want to rob people. Chapter 8:19. Yi Baiming shrugged, his tone indifferent. She's dead. She couldn't control the super magic and ended up without a corpse. He didn't have any feelings for Chen Lianer to begin with. When they were young, the 2 of them might have had some childish feelings for each other. However, all of this had disappeared when Chen Lianer coveted the position of crown princess and threw herself into Yi Bailian's arms. Yunsheng heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Baiming saw the changes in her expression. His gray eyes moved and a faint smile spread across his face. This time he really had to thank Chen Lianer. The little wild cat was slowly starting to care about him. Yunsheng didn't feel guilty about Chen Lianer's death at all. That woman was too greedy and rashly used the super magic. She had almost killed everyone. In the end, she had only herself to blame for the backlash from the super magic. However, Yunsheng was more concerned about the magic god bracelet on Chen Lianer's wrist. Chen Lianer had died. She originally had a chance to snatch the magic god bracelet. Who knew that the magic array under her feet would suddenly collapse, and she would lose her footing and fall into the magic array. In the chaos, the magic god bracelet had been swept away by the wind and landed somewhere. At that time, Du Guxiu and Yi Baiming were closer to Chen Lianer. She looked at Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu suspiciously, but there was nothing strange about their handsome faces. It shouldn't be the 2 of them. The summoning demon hand didn't react. Moreover, the magic god bracelet looked very old. Unless an ordinary person had seen the magic god bracelet before, they wouldn't be able to recognize it as one of the 8 desolate divine tools. Yunsheng pondered. These 2 didn't look like they had the magic god bracelet, but it also seemed like both of them could have gotten it. Yi Baiming had been so focused on saving her that he probably didn't care about the magic god bracelet. Du Guxiu was a martial artist, so the magic god bracelet wouldn't be of much use to him. Or could it be that the magic deity bracelet had fallen into the city lord's hall during the chaos? Yunsheng made a small calculation in her mind. The magic array had suddenly collapsed, and the city lord's hall was already on the verge of collapse after the chaotic battle earlier. If the entire castle collapsed, it would be even more difficult to find the magic bracelet. Everything would have to wait until they got out of the underground palace. If they couldn't leave the underground palace, even if they had the divine law bracelet, it would be useless. Found it. The mechanism is here. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu did not know what Yun Shang was thinking. The tomb was sealed and surrounded by walls. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu searched the walls and found the mechanism of the tomb. Turning on the mechanism, one of the walls moved away. A corridor appeared before the three of them. The three of them walked out of the stone chamber and took a few steps forward. Sure enough, they found a tomb chamber. From the outside, this tomb did not look any different from the tomb that the three of them had been in earlier. However, once they entered the tomb, they saw a completely different scene. The tomb of the Taiyuan crown princess was like a small garden. Not only was this a tomb chamber, but there was also an indoor pond that was the size of a football field. Beside the pond, there was a small bridge with flowing water. Beautiful man-made mountains were built, and spring water tinkled as it fell. The spring water poured into the pond, and beautiful pink water lilies bloomed in the pond. Even though no one had entered to maintain it for more than 500 years, the tomb chamber was still clean and tidy. It had never been disturbed by outsiders. There's a coffin in the middle of the pond. A coffin was floating in the middle of the rippling green flowers and leaves. The coffin seemed to be made of cold jade, and it was completely transparent. It had been floating in the lotus flowers for more than 500 years. Through the lotus flowers and leaves, one could faintly see a graceful figure lying in the coffin. Fair competition? Du Guxiu looked at Yi Baiming with a faint smile. Even though there was still a pond between them, Du Guxiu and Yi Baiming could feel a wave of energy. That wave of energy came from within the cold jade coffin. The 8 Barons' divine artifact was very likely to be in that coffin. Yi Baiming did not say a word. With just a look, the two of them were like fierce tigers descending from the mountain and dragons emerging from the sea. Their fighting aura transformed into wings and rushed toward the jade coffin. Just as the two of them changed their movements, Yi Baiming suddenly thought of something. Something seemed to be wrong? That's right, the little wild cat did not move. Yi Baiming was very clear about Yun Shang's personality. Yun Shang would definitely not be inferior to others when it came to snatching treasures. Even if she was not as strong as Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu, she would not wait obediently at the side. But right now, Yun Shang was indeed staring blankly at the coffin. Not only was there no joy on her little face, but there was also some shock. No wave of the 8 Barons' divine artifact. The summoning demon hand in the beast language ring did not move at all. It was impossible for the 8 Barons' divine artifact to be in that ice coffin. Yi Baiming's guess was right. If she had felt the wave of the 8 Barons' divine artifact, even if she had to go against Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu, she would not be outdone. But she was sure that there was no divine artifact in the ice coffin. Suddenly Yun Shang's eyebrows twitched. She shouted at the two of them, "Be careful!" Just as Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu flew toward that ice coffin, a strange scene happened. As Yi Baiming had thought of Yun Shang's reaction at the last moment, he was slower than Du Guxiu by a beat. Du Guxiu had already touched the ice coffin one step before him. Just as Du Guxiu's hand was about to open the ice coffin and snatch the 8 Barons' divine artifact from the ice coffin, the originally calm and peaceful lotus pond suddenly splashed with water, and the lotus flowers and leaves scattered in all directions. 2 black shadows came out side by side, respectively pouncing toward Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu. Du Guxiu was the closest to the coffin and had long let his guard down. He did not expect that there would be an ambush under the water. With a thunderous roar, Du Guxiu smelled a fishy stench and his body was suddenly sent flying. Yi Baiming's situation was slightly better, but he was also forced out of the pond by a biting cold claw wind. Du Guxiu crashed into the wall and the wall caved in. Yi Baiming also retreated a few steps. The two of them looked at the pond at the same time, and saw that there were 2 more magical beasts beside the pond. Those 2 magical beasts were filled with hostility. One had the body of a lion and the head of a tiger, while the other had the head of a tiger and the body of a lion. They were the extremely rare tiger-lion beasts on the continent. These 2 tiger-lion beasts not only had astonishing strength, but also wore purple gold battle helmets made of purple gold. Even their claws were incomparably sharp and indestructible. Tiger-lion beasts? Du Guxiu stood up. The armor in front of his chest had already been torn to shreds by the claws of the beasts. There was a large hole in the armor, revealing his chest. He looked to be in a sorry state. King-level magical beasts. Yi Baiming also stood still. The two of them coincidentally remembered that Yun Shang had asked a seemingly strange question in the magical beast corridor. Chapter 820. She remembered that when she was in the magical beast corridor, most people were admiring the 20 purple gold statues that looked like the work of God. But Yun Shang was the only one who was curious. There should have been 22 purple gold statues, but there were only 20 statues below the commander level. Where did the king-level purple gold statues go? At that time, Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu had only heard about it, and didn't think too deeply about the meaning behind Yun Shang's words. But now, it seemed that she had already noticed something strange about the purple gold statues back then. Yun Shang was a summoner and was different from ordinary magicians and warriors. When she saw the purple gold statues, she felt a trace of life force. Although that life force was very weak, it carried a trace of anger and sorrow. But at that time she didn't investigate deeply to find out what those statues were. Now it seemed that these purple gold statues could actually transform into real demonic beasts. It was very likely that these purple gold statues were related to the great disaster that destroyed Taiyuan City. These two king-level demonic beasts could have avoided the disaster, and were waiting in the Crown Princess tomb for the final enemy to appear so that they could deal the final blow to the greedy enemy. Oh no, they are in danger. When Yun Shang saw the two king-level purple gold statues, she immediately thought of the purple gold statues in the magical beast corridor. The collapse of the city lord's hall would cause an intense tremor that would definitely affect the entire castle. Sister Lan would definitely lead everyone out of the castle. But if those purple gold statues suddenly transformed into demonic beasts at that time, then Sister Lan and the others would be in danger. Demonic beasts that had been starved for many years were several times more powerful than ordinary demonic beasts. We don't know for now whether they are in danger or not. Right now our lives are more important. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu looked at each other again. This time there was no hostility in their eyes. King-level demonic beasts were no small matter. Even though the two of them were martial emperors now, they still had to use all their strength to defeat the strange purple-gold tiger-lion beasts. Yi Baiming nodded at Du Guxiu. Let's make peace for now and kill these two big guys. Then let's see who succeeds first. Du Guxiu also smiled. There was an additional trace of appreciation in their eyes. One was the black-bellied prince of Zhou State, and the other was the iron-blooded prince of later Qin. If these two had been born in a peaceful era, they might have been able to compete on the same stage, drinking and chatting happily. However, the two of them were born in a chaotic world and fell in love with the same woman. Both of them were dragons among men, and one day, they would start a new battle on the stage of the boundless continent. When faced with the threat of a king-level magical beast, perhaps only Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu would be in the mood to have a beast-slaying competition. Men's logic is really hard to understand. Yun Shang was speechless. Strange men. A moment ago they were still fighting to the death. The next moment they became good friends who fought side by side. Yun Shang could bet that the first thing these two did after leaving the underground palace was to fight to the death. However, this also indirectly reflected that Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu were both people who would achieve great things. They temporarily put aside their national and personal grudges, and decided to fight the enemy together. Save. Let's save. Just as Yun Shang was fantasizing, she heard that voice again. This time she heard it clearly. That faintly discernible voice came from the Frost Jade Ice Coffin. With Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu dealing with the king-level guardian beasts, Yun Shang's full attention was on the Frost Jade Coffin floating in the lotus pond. The magic wings on Yun Shang's back flapped, and she flew towards the Frost Jade Coffin. Roar! Roar! The two tiger-lion beasts that were fighting with Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu discovered Yun Shang's intention. They roared angrily and wanted to stop Yun Shang. Bastard, how dare you touch my woman? Yi Baiming's phoenix eyes narrowed. Even though he was a demon, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He grabbed the tiger-lion beast's tail. A tiger-lion beast that weighed about 500 to 600 kilograms was thrown out by him with his bare hands. Even if the wild kitten wanted to rob a grave, he would smoothly help her dig a tunnel, not to mention that she only wanted to take a look at the items in the frost jade coffin. I've thought it through. Instead of letting Lord Biming take advantage of her, I'd rather give her the magical weapon to play with. Du Guxiu also looked generous. He swung his iron fist and punched the waist of the tiger-lion beasts. The two purple-gold tiger-lion beasts were forced into a corner by the two men who were getting fiercer and fiercer. How could there be such powerful warriors among the human race? A trace of unwillingness flashed across the eyes of the two tiger-lion beasts. Yun Shang had successfully approached the ice coffin. She carefully pushed open the coffin. The cold jade coffin was still emitting wisps of cold air. There was a woman lying in the coffin. The woman's appearance was otherworldly. Even as a woman, Yun Shang couldn't help but be stunned when she saw her. Her skin was whiter than ivory. Her eyelashes were as long as butterfly wings under her closed eyes. Her red lips were as delicate as the stamen of a flower. Her brown hair was soft and smooth and fell to her waist. She looked to be in her early 20s. Lying in the coffin with her hands on her waist, she looked as if she was asleep. If it weren't for the fact that her heartbeat and breathing had stopped, Yun Shang would have mistakenly thought that she was still alive and had just fallen asleep. This woman must be the crown princess of the Taiyuan city lord. She didn't expect that after 500 years, the body of the crown princess was still in good condition. What's this? Yun Shang looked at the other side of the ice coffin. Beside the coffin, a halberd lay quietly, emitting a cold light. The halberd of the divine warrior? But why didn't the summoning demon hand make a move? Yun Shang murmured softly. Hearing the movement, Yi Biming and Du Guxiu shook off the two king-level demonic beasts and rushed to Yun Shang's side. When they saw the halberd in the coffin, their eyes flashed with obvious disappointment. After spending so much effort to come to the underground palace, they thought that they would be able to find the 8 barren lands' divine weapon. But unexpectedly, with their eyesight, it wasn't difficult for them to see that the weapon in the coffin was only a divine weapon. It wasn't the halberd of the divine warrior that had the terrifying power to destroy the world. How dare you offend the crown princess's coffin? You all deserve to die. The two tiger-lion beasts suddenly spoke in human language. They stood up like humans. Generals, don't be angry. This is my guest. The three of them were shocked. That was because the voice was coming from the ice jade coffin. But the woman in the ice coffin still had her eyes closed. Yun Shang immediately recognized the voice. It was the voice she heard when she stepped into the Taiyuan city lord's castle. Chapter 821. In the ice coffin, other than the woman's corpse, there was only the halberd. At this moment, what surprised Yun Shang was that the voice didn't come from the woman's body, but from the halberd. On the halberd, a wisp of law soul power floated out. That wisp of law soul power was very weak, and the image it formed was also very blurry. Yun Shang could barely see that it was a woman. The woman's appearance was exactly the same as the woman in the ice coffin. She was the Taiyuan imperial concubine, Fei Lange, who had passed away over 500 years ago. You were the one who called out to me in the Taiyuan castle? Only now did Yun Shang know that her entry into the Taiyuan castle, including the Taiyuan underground palace, was all secretly guided by Fei Lange. It was me. Because you were the only one who could hear my call in the past 500 years. You also know how to use space-time magic. You are the one who can help me fulfill my long-cherished wish. Fei Lange's voice had a trace of throbbing. She had been waiting for Yun Shang for many years. It had been 500 years. Ever since that night, the Taiyuan Empire changed, and Taiyuan City was reduced to ruins. In the first 100 years, there were many adventurers who entered the Taiyuan ruins, but none of them were able to walk out. In the next 400 years, the terrifying legends of the Taiyuan Empire spread across the continent, and even fewer people were willing to enter the Taiyuan ruins. Emptiness. Loneliness. Endless loneliness slowly consumed the Taiyuan imperial concubine Fei Lange's lost soul. She was getting weaker and weaker, and she was afraid that her lost soul would dissipate at any moment. She wanted to leave the underground palace, but her weak lost soul couldn't break free from the shackles of the coffin. She was like a lamp that could be extinguished by the wind at any moment, waiting for Yun Shang at the last moment. Those Taiyuan eucalyptus trees, that strange fork in the road, and that purple gold magical beast were all left behind by the Taiyuan city lord? Yun Shang's words caused Fei Lingyue's lost soul to fluctuate violently. She was furious. No, Taiyuan is a multi-talented, gentle and affectionate person. He won't do those things that harm people. Those are the Zhao state's dirty methods to prevent people from entering Taiyuan and discovering the evil deeds they did in the past. Fei Lingyue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She had finally found the right person to expose the ugly face of the Zhao state. From Fei Lingyue's narration, the three of them found out that the Taiyuan crown princess, Fei Lingyue, was also a space-time magician before she passed away. Before she died, she was worried about her husband, the Prince of Taiyuan, so she used her last bit of strength to leave the power of her soul on the Prince of Taiyuan's war halberd. Although I've already attached my soul to the war halberd, my soul power is too weak. Taiyuan's soul power is also not as strong as yours. That's why he didn't know that I was by his side. Fei Lingyue's expression was gloomy, silently waiting for the person she loved, watching him grow old and die, getting married, getting sick and taking sick leave. This kind of happiness and pain was incomprehensible to ordinary people. However, Fei Lingyue was a gentle person to begin with. If the Taiyuan city lord had left Penglai like an ordinary person and started a new life, Fei Lingyue might have silently protected him until he passed away at 100 years old. But that thing happened. Taiyuan was too foolish. Tears fell from Fei Lingyue's face. Her sorrow infected the few people in the tomb. Even the two tiger-lion beasts wept sadly. Fei Lingyue, what did the Zhao state do? Yun Sheng asked. These were questions that she had kept in her heart ever since she entered Taiyuan Mountain. She thought that no one would know the secret of Taiyuan's ruins. But who would have thought that a strand of Fei Lingyue's soul would witness everything that happened 500 years ago? The truth of history could never be buried. They schemed layer by layer and made Taiyuan fall into their trap. They even used a vicious beast blood curse. The tiger-lion beasts behind you were affected by the beast blood curse. They were originally subordinates of the Prince of Taiyuan. Fei Lingyue stopped crying. The gentleness on her face was drowned out by her anger. Although Yun Sheng also felt that this matter might have something to do with the Zhao state, she didn't expect the Zhao state to be so ruthless as to destroy the entire Taiyuan city. There were at least a few thousand people in the city, from humans to beasts. Fei Lingyue narrated the tragedy that happened 500 years ago in Taiyuan city to the three of them. Back then there was internal strife in Penglai. The former crown prince of Penglai, Taiyuan, escaped with Fei Lingyue. Unfortunately, they were ambushed by the Zhao state on the way out. Many of Taiyuan's subordinates were killed. In order to protect Taiyuan, Fei Lingyue used a restriction spell at the last moment to block the Zhao state's troops. Unfortunately, Crimson Langman had used up all of her magic power because of that forbidden magic. Unfortunately, she was killed. After losing his lover, Taiyuan was devastated. He brought Fei Lingyue's corpse to Taiyuan Mountain. He didn't know that Fei Lingyue's soul was always by his side. Taiyuan went to Fei Lingyue's favorite place, Taiyuan Mountain. Using a lot of manpower and resources, he spent 10 years to build a Taiyuan city carved out of ivory at the top of the mountain. Those Taiyuan subordinates who left the Zhao state and Penglai with Taiyuan also settled down there and lived a peaceful life. If he had been able to recuperate and live out the rest of his life here after establishing Taiyuan city, the tragedy of Taiyuan city would not have happened. Taiyuan lost Penglai's imperial power and his most beloved woman because of the Zhao state. His heart was filled with hatred and he wanted revenge all the time. In his view, Fei Lingyue's figure was everywhere in the enormous Taiyuan castle. The bloody figures of his subordinates who had died tragically flashed in front of him from time to time. Taiyuan, who was blinded by hatred, was determined to take revenge. But with his strength and military strength at that time, it was impossible for him to go against the Zhao state. Taiyuan wasn't willing to give up. He kept looking for a way to go against the Zhao state. Zhao state's biggest advantage was their magical beasts. So Taiyuan started to cultivate their own magical beasts. When Taiyuan escaped from Penglai, he brought back a batch of pure-blooded magical beasts from the Penglai Imperial Palace's breeding shed. Taiyuan started to raise these magical beasts. When the magical beasts reached adulthood, he equipped them with purple gold armor. But even with a group of unfamiliar magical beasts, Taiyuan's personal strength was still not enough. Later, he heard from somewhere that in the Dutian blood beast world, there were magical beasts' blood crystals that could strengthen the body. He obtained a few blood crystals, but because he didn't merge them properly, he gradually became a beast. Fei Lingyue watched anxiously from the side, but there was nothing she could do. She could only watch as her beloved suffered both physical and mental torture. She would update 4 to 5 chapters every day. People kept asking why she didn't update today. Fuzi reiterated that the original version was only published through Tencent. The other versions were all published through illegal channels. In the future, if you have any problems with illegal channels, don't ask me again. Also, don't leave scolding comments. Chapter 822. Due to his eagerness to achieve a breakthrough, the Taiyuan prince fused with more blood crystals than his body could handle. He gradually began to turn into a beast and found it difficult to control his emotions and actions. He also realized this point and became eccentric. Even to his closest subordinates, he would often beat and scold them. Gradually, the citizens began to notice the change in their castellan. They began to distance themselves from the Taiyuan prince. When the Taiyuan prince sensed this, he began to seal himself away. He hid in the underground palace and guarded Fei Lingyue's coffin day and night. When Fei Lingyue saw this, her heart ached, but she was powerless to do anything. Imperial concubine Fei, if I may ask, what blood crystal did the Taiyuan prince fuse with? Yi Baiming couldn't help but ask. There were many types of blood crystals in the Dutian blood beast world. The blood crystals formed from the blood of the 8 clan leaders of the Bakra orcs were also divided into magic blood crystals and battle energy blood crystals. Different people could fuse with different types of blood crystals depending on their physique. For example, magicians couldn't directly fuse with battle energy blood crystals, and warriors couldn't fuse with magic blood crystals. When Yi Baiming heard that the Taiyuan prince had changed, he guessed that he must have misheard someone else's words and fused with the wrong blood crystal. It should be the Qilin King's blood crystal. The Taiyuan prince heard that the Black Qilin King's clan leader was the strongest among the 8 barren tribes. Could it be? When Imperial concubine Fei said this, Yi Baiming and Dugu Xiu's expressions changed slightly. The Taiyuan prince came from Penglai, and should be a magician skilled in the art of summoning. He fused with the Qilin blood crystal that only warriors can fuse with. Naturally, he couldn't succeed. Moreover, you said that he fused with multiple blood crystals. Dugu Xiu glanced at Yi Baiming. The latter didn't deny his point. The two understood that the other must have fused with many Qilin blood crystals as well. Both Yi Baiming and Dugu Xiu were warriors with extraordinary talent. Since they had fused with the Qilin blood crystal, they could naturally digest the powerful fighting aura within the crystal. However, Prince Taiyuan's actions had the opposite effect. You mean to say that the Taiyuan prince was framed? It's the Zhao state after all. Ji Ruffing is so vicious. Fei Lingyue laughed coldly. Ji Ruffing was the Red Pontiff of the Summoned Court more than 500 years ago. He was an ambitious man. It was also during his reign that the Summoned Court rose rapidly in Penglai, exterminating the royal family of Penglai. After killing the Taiyuan royal family, Ji Ruffing wanted to eliminate the root of the problem. However, he was afraid that the other countries on the continent would oppose the Zhao state and denounce the Zhao state. After thinking hard, Red Pope Ji Ruffing thought of using the Taiyuan prince's hatred to mislead the Taiyuan prince into exploding after fusing with the Qilin blood crystals. However, despite all his scheming, Ji Ruffing was still one step behind. What Ji Ruffing didn't know was that after the Taiyuan prince entered the Dutian blood beast world, in addition to obtaining the Qilin blood crystals, he also obtained a divine weapon that shocked the entire continent, the halberd of the divine war. After fusing with the Qilin blood crystals, the Taiyuan prince had indeed gone berserk. However, he relied on his astonishing willpower and the halberd of the divine war to preserve his life and transform into a demigod rank 3-eyed purple Qilin. Just as he was about to attack the Zhao state, he destroyed the magic formation that led to the underground palace. The Emperor Zhao in red, Ji Ruffing, rushed to Taiyuan Mountain with the 13 lords of the Zhao state. Ji Ruffing used the purple gold beast blood curse on the entire Taiyuan city, turning the citizens of the Taiyuan city into demonic beasts and forcefully sealing away the Taiyuan prince. Massacring a city sounded like a heresy, but if he used the excuse of demonic beasts invading the city to kill them, it would be much more dignified. However, this wasn't enough. In order to cover up his evil deeds, Ji Ruffing even set up many checkpoints in Taiyuan Mountain to prevent people from entering, turning the Taiyuan ruins into a ghost town. As for the tiger-lion beasts that clashed with Yun Shang's group, Fei Lingyue used an ancient seal to hide in the underground palace in order to protect their lives. That was how they escaped Ji Ruffing's wrath. So this was the truth of the matter. Imperial concubine, you're saying that the Taiyuan prince isn't dead, but has been sealed? Then where is his seal now? Also, why did I only find a few purple gold statues at the entrance of the Taiyuan castle? Where did the citizens who were under the beast's blood curse go? This was also what Yun Shang was most puzzled about. She wasn't sure what kind of magic the beast's blood curse was, but it sounded like it could defy the heavens and turn people into demonic beasts. This kind of magic was undoubtedly darker than dark magic. It was definitely a type of ancient seal magic. You should have seen him by now. Do you still remember the purple cloud above the Taiyuan ruins? It's been 500 years. Although the Taiyuan prince has been sealed, he has always been around, using his own methods to protect this territory. When Fei Lingyue said this, there was a hint of pride in her tone. That cultured and refined man was her man, her pride. Ji Ruffing was very strong, but the Taiyuan prince wasn't incompetent. Although he had turned into a beast, he still knew that he had to protect his citizens. In order to prevent his citizens who had turned into demonic beasts from being killed, he had devoured the citizens of Taiyuan City and put them into an eternal sleep. As for himself, he had been sealed by Ji Ruffing in the form of a purple cloud. Although he had successfully sealed the Taiyuan prince, the Emperor Zhao in red, Ji Ruffing had exhausted himself too much. Not long after returning to the Zhao state, he had passed away. Because it had accumulated too much resentment and hatred, the sealed purple cloud would wake up once every month. Those purple lightning flashes were the hatred and anger of the Taiyuan prince. It's been another month. The Taiyuan prince is about to wake up. Haha, those people who think they're smart will definitely pay the price in blood. Fei Lingyue's gaze turned cold. Outside the Taiyuan castle, the Zhao state's people looked at the crumbling Taiyuan castle and laughed complacently. But gradually they realized that something was wrong. The third summoner, the sky. The purple cloud in the sky seems to be getting closer and closer. The Zhao state's people noticed that in just half a day, the purple cloud in the sky above the Taiyuan castle was buzzing. The sound was getting louder and louder. The third summoner remembered the legend of the Taiyuan ruins. Only those who were below the level of a saint-level Dharma king could enter the Taiyuan ruins. Otherwise, they would be struck to death by lightning. This time, the third summoner wanted to kill the people of the 6 major powers. He had disregarded the legend of the Taiyuan ruins and forced his way in. Boom! A purple lightning bolt as thick as an arm suddenly struck down. A summoner was struck and turned into a charred corpse. Then several more lightning bolts struck down. The purple lightning was like a sharp weapon that chased after the souls of the Zhao state's people. Chapter 823. Retreat. Retreat from Taiyuan Castle immediately. The third main summoner was scared out of his wits. Even someone as powerful as Zhao Ting was insignificant in the face of the natural power of lightning. In order to save their lives, the summoners either transformed into magic wings or summoned flying magical beasts. However, they forgot that no matter how fast the magical beasts were, they were nothing in the face of lightning. However, that lightning flash seemed to have eyes. Every strike was accurate. The summoners were shot down in midair like moths with burning wings. The third main summoner did not care about the lives of the other summoners. He hurriedly tried to escape. His strength was already at level 1 Law Overlord. He ran all the way and finally left the mountaintop. This way he should be able to save his life. In front of him was the horizon. As long as he left this place, he would be able to escape from Taiyuan Mountain. The third main summoner was at the level of a main summoner. He had heard of the things that happened in Taiyuan Mountain. He vaguely knew where the purple cloud came from. However, he thought that as long as he could avoid the purple cloud thunderstorm, he would be able to escape. Who knew that the purple cloud would suddenly become angry? This damned place. When I get back, I'll tell the Emperor Zao to find someone to burn this stupid mountain, the third main summoner mumbled. He still did not give up and looked back. This one look almost scared the wits out of the third main summoner. He thought that he had escaped the purple cloud's threat. However, when he looked back, 6 terrifying thunderstorm balls with the power of lightning were chasing after him like ghosts. No, don't come closer. The third main summoner panicked. He scattered his magic in all directions. Wind scythes, fireballs, and ice blades were all thrown at the thunderstorm balls. However, it was useless. The thunderstorm balls kept coming closer. His blood-curdling screams echoed throughout the forests of Taiyuan Mountain. At the foot of Taiyuan Mountain, Xiao Wenxiu, who had been waiting for several days, looked up at the purple cloud in the sky. Fate rises and falls. Evil causes and evil effects. If you knew today would come, Taiyuan, would you repent? When Ziyun started the riot, the people from the 6 major forces who were trapped in the magical beast corridor were already at the end of their rope. Corpses were everywhere, and the magic scepter in Lan Heqi's hand was already dyed red with blood. It was the blood of magical beasts, as well as their own blood. The people around them fell one by one, but the purple-gold demonic beasts seemed to have infinite vitality. They would not give up until the last moment. Listen, if this goes on, we'll all die. Abandon, break out of the encirclement and get some people out. Blue was panting. She didn't have much mana left. She knew that this time, if they all died in the Taiyuan castle, then there would be no future for the mainland's magic elite camp. Yun Sheng had disappeared for more than half a day. It was hard to tell whether she was dead or alive. Right now, only Abandon was in a slightly better situation. Even if she had to die, she wanted Abandon to charge out. If any of you can get out of here, I'm willing to give you 1 million purple gold coins. Li Xiao was struggling at death's door under the escort of Mage Tang Yuan. Looking at the ferocious purple gold demonic beasts, whose attacks were getting more and more suffocating, Li Xiao's psychological defense had already collapsed. Keep your dirty money. Tianyu looked at Zhou Qingchuan with tears in her eyes. If she and Zhou Qingchuan died together, at least she wouldn't be alone on the road to hell. No, listen, there's movement outside the castle. Huo Yu of the Fire Elves clan was also wounded in many places. He, Bu Jiuxiao, and Ru Yi had joined forces to stop the 2 commander-level magical beasts. They had done their part to protect everyone. Hearing Huo Yu's words, everyone heard the sound of thunder outside the castle. The sound of thunder was incessant, but strangely, when the thunder sounded, the purple-gold demonic beasts, who were originally full of aggression and fighting to the death, quieted down. As if they had heard an order, they prostrated themselves on the ground. They gradually turned back into statues of purple-gold demonic beasts and remained motionless. In the face of this strange scene, everyone was frightened, but at the same time, they were also very clear-headed. However, they still gathered their courage and quickly passed through the demonic beast corridor. After moving away the boulders blocking the way, they finally saw the sky outside. Although the sky was still covered with purple clouds and they couldn't see the clear sky, everyone felt the urge to breathe a sigh of relief. Walking out of the castle, everyone let out a cheer. After surviving a disaster, the days in the Taiyuan castle were like a nightmare that couldn't be forgotten. Look, that's, on the hillside. There were many charred corpses and bodies of magical beasts. Judging from the scattered magic scepters and clothes, they were people from the Zhao state. Why are there people from the Zhao state here? Shouldn't they have left already? Everyone was surprised, and when they thought of all the things that had happened earlier, they felt a chill in their hearts. The people from the Zhao state had wild ambitions. This time, it was very strange that they left early to search for the relic. But now, it seemed that they were trapped in the Taiyuan castle for no reason. The people from the Zhao state had left and returned. It was obvious that the blocked entrance and the sudden appearance of the purple-gold demonic beasts had a lot to do with the Zhao state. Zhao state, after I go down the mountain, I will not let them go. Changbai had lost his previous gentleness, and his face was ferocious. Let's go down the mountain immediately. It's too dangerous here. Li Xiao had survived the disaster and no longer wanted to look for the relic. Right now, he just wanted to go down the mountain immediately. He didn't care about the relic. If he had known that this would happen, he wouldn't have come to Taiyuan Mountain. The magicians he brought with him suffered the most losses. Even Keling was killed in the chaos just now. No, except for the wounded, the rest of the people should stay and think of a way to find the missing people. And the brothers and sisters buried in the castle. Lan's voice was choked with sobs. This genius sorcerer, who had always been proud and arrogant, felt so powerless in Taiyuan Castle. She watched helplessly as her former colleague died in front of her, but she could do nothing about it. Except for the missing Yun Shang and Du Guxiao, there were only 5 people left in the elite camp in the later Qin alliance. They were her, abandoned Madame Qi Bai, a magician and a warrior. The Taiyuan Castle had collapsed. The possibility of Yun Shang's survival was very low. But as long as there was a glimmer of hope, Lan swore that she would find the bodies of Yun Shang and the dead members and bring them back. Are you crazy? You are taking such a big risk for a few dead people. I don't want to be crazy with you. The second prince Li Xiao sneered and left with the remaining 2 or 3 people. Chapter 824. We'll stay too. No matter what, I have to find third sister. Tianyu's eyes were red as she held back her tears. Wuji, Tianyu also suffered heavy losses this time. However, no matter how heavy the losses were, it couldn't be compared to Yun Shang's disappearance. After Tianyu got to know Yun Shang and Donghuang Ling she saw them as her own sisters. One of them had lost her mind, and the other was missing. As the eldest sister, she constantly blamed herself for not taking good care of them. Even if they could only find Yun Shang's corpse in the end, she still had to bring her third sister back. Yun Shang, no matter what, you have to stay alive. I'll find you soon. Zhou Qingchuan held her hand and comforted her. After experiencing this life and death ordeal, their relationship had improved by leaps and bounds. I'll stay too. If we can't find Lady Yun Shang, Divine Wind won't let me go when we return. Huiyu also displayed the forthright spirit of an elf. Lady Yun Shang was the only successor of the fire elves. She was blessed and would definitely be fine. If Huiyu didn't look for her, Divine Wind would probably do anything to find Yun Shang, even if they had to flip over the entire Taiyuan Mountain. Changbai, Bu Jiuxiao, and the others also decided to stay and look for Yi Baiming. Madame Qi Bai and the others also stayed to look for Du Guxiao. Because the castle was still collapsing, the rescue was very difficult. Everyone decided to wait until the tremors died down first thing in the morning before starting the rescue. During the final headcount, Chang Bai's team realized that Lu Tongtian had disappeared in the chaos. With Lu Tongtian's status in the magic elite camp, if it wasn't for Chen Lian he definitely wouldn't have joined Zhou State. Chen Lian was dead. Not only did Lu Tongtian lose the person he loved, but he also had no clue where to find the divine artifact. His identity was exposed. Under such circumstances, he didn't have the face to return to the magic elite camp. When the castle collapsed, it was chaos. Lu Tongtian didn't know if he escaped or was trapped in the castle. However, no one cared about Lu Tongtian's life or death. Outside Taiyuan Castle, everyone was waiting for dawn to arrive so that they could carry out the rescue operation. Inside the underground palace, Fei Lingyue had already explained the entire sequence of events. Fei Lingyue told Yun Shang that it was because her magic soul was very strong that she was able to respond to her call. Previously, there were some powerful magicians who had successfully entered Taiyuan Castle. However, because of their magic souls, they didn't hear Fei Lingyue's call. In the end, they died under the claws of the purple gold beasts. Crown Prince Consort, if I may be so bold as to ask, based on the power of the Dharma soul, he should be more likely to hear your call than I am. Why did you choose me? Yun Shang was puzzled. Her Dharma soul was a part of Yi Baiming. Compared to her main body, the power of her Dharma soul should not be comparable to Yi Baiming. Even though she didn't know how powerful Yi Baiming's Dharma soul was, it was undoubtedly very powerful. Actually, when the two of you entered Taiyuan Castle, I had already noticed this. Yi Baiming's Dharma soul was very powerful. Fei Lingyue had also noticed that Yi Baiming's Dharma soul was even stronger than Yun Shang's. She had also tried to call out to Yi Baiming, but Yi Baiming was unresponsive to her calls. Fei Lingyue was also puzzled at that time. However, when Yi Baiming disregarded everything to save Yun Sheng when they fell into the underground palace, Fei Lingyue finally understood. His heart was like iron. That handsome man probably only had room in his heart for that girl called Yun Sheng. Even if he heard the voices of other women, he was unmoved. As a woman, she could die without regrets if she could obtain the love of such a man. Fei Lingyue couldn't help but sigh in admiration at her perseverance. Imperial concubine, is she the person you have been searching for all these years? The person who is proficient in space-time magic and can change the tragic fate of Taiyuan City? When the two Taigan beasts heard the woman's voice, they stopped their attacks and prostrated themselves on the ground with doubt and respect in their eyes. However, they didn't understand why the imperial concubine would place all her hopes on that female mage who was only a sky mage, even though the two men were clearly much stronger than Yun Sheng. It was said that these two Taigan beasts were the two great generals under the command of the Prince of Taiyuan back then. They had also escaped a calamity because of the underground palace. Due to Fei Lingyue's space-time magic, they had stopped growing old and dying and had always been in a state of immortality. To many people on the mainland, immortality was the pursuit of victory. However, to these two Taigan beasts it was like having a sharp edge on their backs. Every day they lived, they would be tormented by hatred. They had always hoped that one day, they would be able to leave the underground palace and save the citizens of Taiyuan City and the Prince of Taiyuan. Imperial concubine, you still haven't explained why my appearance would bring you hope. Also, I don't know any powerful space-time magic, let alone break the seal of the former pope. Yun Sheng knew very well that even with the summoning demon hand, she wouldn't be able to break the seal of the Emperor Zhao in Red Ji Rufeng. As for space-time magic, she had only learned the simplest space-time freeze. This kind of magic could only be considered the most basic of space-time magic. Ji Rufeng's magic was unique to him. Even if the current Emperor Zhao came, he might not be able to break it. I'm not asking you to break the seal. Ji Rufeng is already dead, and no one can break the seal. In order to save the lives of Taiyuan and the citizens of Taiyuan City, there is only one way. That is to completely avoid that disaster and return to 500 years ago. Fei Lingyue's eyes were filled with a hint of desire. She had been waiting for this moment for too long. Initially, Fei Lingyue didn't expect Yun Sheng to be able to save the lives of the citizens of Taiyuan City. However, the moment the magic array shattered, Fei Lingyue discovered that Yun Sheng knew how to use space-time magic. The person Fei Lingyue was searching for had to be a space-time magician. She believed that as long as she and Yun Sheng fused their magic, they would definitely be able to turn back time and return to 500 years ago, right before the tragedy. Turn back time and return to the past? Yun Sheng and the other two were shocked by Fei Lingyue's heaven-defying idea. Imperial concubine, isn't your idea a little too heaven-defying? I suggest that we find a magician who is proficient in space-time magic. That would be more reliable. Yun Sheng knew that turning back time was an unrealistic idea. It was definitely an ancient forbidden magic. If it wasn't executed properly, she might face the same fate as Chan Lian, or she would be devoured by the magic and her body would explode. Chapter 825. Yun Sheng wasn't afraid of death, but there were too many things she had yet to accomplish. She couldn't die. Her mother, Hu Jiuxing, had lost her memories. Her father's whereabouts were unknown. She hadn't even found the 8 desolate divine artifact. Furthermore, her little Cientong still hadn't unified all the medical centers in the continent. She still hadn't found the current Emperor Zhao to take revenge for the destruction of her family. There were too many unfulfilled wishes. Yun Sheng couldn't take this risk to try a heaven-defying forbidden magic that she couldn't control. No, it's too late. My magic soul has lasted for more than 500 years, and it's already at the end of its life. It won't be long before it disappears. If I die, this underground palace will also collapse, and no one in this world will know of the injustice done to Taiyuan City. Fei Lingyue suddenly knelt down. She was originally the imperial concubine of Taiyuan. Because she was proficient in space-time magic, she was also Peng Lai's most talented daughter. She was proud and willful. But at this moment, She didn't hesitate to throw away her dignity and kneel to Yun Shang. Imperial concubine, don't force me. Those who force me often don't have a good ending. Yun Shang was moved by Fei Lingyue's stubbornness. She wasn't from Taiyuan, nor was she from Peng Lai. She had only come to Taiyuan's ruins to search for a divine artifact. As for the grudges from 500 years ago, she was an outsider. If it weren't for the fact that she was a summoner and had a powerful 5-elemental magic soul, as well as the chance to use space-time magic, she and Fei Lingyue would have been two parallel lines that would never have crossed. Taiyuan's tragedy had already been caused. Wanting to make up for it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. She wasn't a savior, nor was she a saint. There was no need for her to risk her life for a tragedy that happened 500 years ago. Yun Shang's thoughts were also what Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu were thinking. They didn't want Yun Shang to risk using a heaven-defying forbidden magic for a strand of her magic soul. Although forbidden techniques and magic possess frightening power, they were often heaven-defying and would bring misfortune to their users. Gentlemen, if you don't help me fulfill my wish, you will never be able to leave this place. To tell you the truth, the underground palace was destroyed more than 500 years ago. The underground palace in front of you is just an illusory underground palace that I created with the power of my Dharma soul. If I'm not willing, you'll never be able to find your way out. Fei Lingyue could also tell that the three people in front of her were not ordinary people. 500 years later on the boundless continent, they would definitely be proud sons of the heavens. Such a character hated being manipulated the most. However, she had no other choice. She could only fight to the bitter end. 500 years ago, the Zhao state had already broken into the Taiyuan castle. They had cast the purple golden beast blood curse on the entire Taiyuan city. No living person could escape from the terrible blood curse. The underground palace was also destroyed. Fei Lingyue used an artifact that was buried with her to rebuild the underground palace, simulating the current underground palace of consciousness. In other words, Yun Shang and the other two didn't exist anywhere in the Taiyuan castle. They existed independently in Fei Lingyue's consciousness. Here there was no passage of time, aging, or hunger. However, when Fei Lingyue's magic soul disappeared, everything here would disappear as well. To put it bluntly, even if someone turned the entire Taiyuan mountain upside down, they wouldn't be able to find the three of them. The three of them only existed in a spatial crack in her consciousness. When Yun Shang and the other two heard this, they broke out in cold sweat. Fei Lingyue, you've gone too far. Yi Baiming's gaze was cold and murderous. Fei Lingyue's magic soul only felt a chill around her. It was as if there was a net-like pressure attacking her from all directions, trapping her. A magic soul was an intangible object. Ordinary battle chi attacks wouldn't hurt her. Only magic soul fluctuations that originated from a magic soul could hurt her. Sure enough, it was just as she had thought. This man surnamed Ye's soul was very powerful. Her magic soul felt as if it was being crushed and was on the verge of collapse. Fei Lingyue groaned but didn't beg for mercy. At this moment, the entire underground palace started shaking. Just as Fei Lingyue had said, the underground palace and her magic soul existed together. If anything happened to her magic soul, the underground palace would also be destroyed and the three of them would have no chance of surviving. Night Fox, stop. She's speaking the truth. Seems like we can only take a risk and try. Although Yun Shang didn't like Fei Lingyue's actions, this woman was undoubtedly worthy of respect. She had silently waited for more than 500 years. She was just a magic soul that couldn't even be considered a spirit. Yun Shang couldn't bear to kill such a woman. Yi Baiming only wanted to test the authenticity of Fei Lingyue's words. Killing Fei Lingyue wouldn't benefit them at all. Thank you. I represent the citizens of Taiyuan City and Taiyuan to thank you. Fei Lingyue also let out a sigh of relief. Hope appeared on her face again. My promise has a condition. I'll say the ugly words first. I'm only trying and might not succeed. Whether I succeed or not, you have to send the two of them out. Yun Shang knew that this time it didn't bode well for them. She had already decided to fight alone. As for Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu, she didn't want to drag them down. Although she also wanted Du Guxiu to be cut into pieces to avenge Ling, she didn't want to. If the two of them could leave, then her companions in Taiyuan City would be safe. After weighing the pros and cons, she decided to temporarily put aside her personal grudges. Fei Lingyue nodded. She only needed to use Yunsheng's power to return to the past. No, this prince wants to go with you. Or do you want this prince to become the second prince of Taiyuan? Yi Baiming knew that Yunsheng wanted to cast him aside. This damned woman. She was just a woman. Did she really think that she could change her fate with her own power? If she died, so what if he returned to the boundless land? There was a kind of loneliness that was worse than death. There was a kind of helplessness that was the separation between heaven and man. Yi Baiming's words made Yunsheng speechless for a long time. Fei Lingyue also fell silent. Night Fox, you. Since you want to accompany me to death, then so be it. Yunsheng gritted her teeth. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. To be honest, she was still a little afraid of space-time magic. If he was here, then perhaps she wouldn't be afraid of anything. This prince wants to go too. Yi Baiming, don't talk like a saint. If I'm not wrong, you want to go back to the past and find the whereabouts of the halberd of the divine battle god, right? This prince won't let you have the halberd of the divine battle god in Yunsheng, Du Guxiu said sourly. Wasn't he just a little slower and let Yi Baiming confess first with an affectionate look on his face? He could win the heart of the beauty, and also find the halberd of the divine battle god that disappeared with the Taiyuan prince. How could he give up such a good opportunity? Since the three of them entered the underground palace together, they had to live and die together. Chapter 826. Since they had decided to return to 500 years ago, Fei Lingyue began to work with Yunsheng to create a space-time reversal spell. Because I only have a trace of my magic soul left, I am unable to create a magic array. You're a space-time magician and also a woman. I can send a portion of my magic soul's power into your body, giving you the ability to cast space-time reversal magic. What Fei Lingyue truly lacked was a physical body. Yunsheng happened to fit all her requirements. This ice coffin was made for me by Taiyuan in order to prevent my corpse from festering. However, it was also because there was a magic array inside that allowed me to retain a strand of my magic soul. If you enter the ice coffin with me, you will be able to fuse with my magic soul better. Under Fei Lingyue's guidance, Yunsheng lay in the ice coffin. The ice coffin wasn't cold at all. Instead, it was very comfortable. Yunsheng followed Fei Lingyue's instructions and began to meditate. Yi Baiming, Du Guxiu, and the two tiger-lion beasts waited anxiously at the side. Yi Baiming didn't even dare to blink as he stared at the ice coffin. His body leaned forward slightly. As long as Yunsheng made any strange movements, he would rush over without hesitation. Who cared about Taiyuan City? Even if it was the entire world, it wouldn't be worth a single Yunsheng in his eyes. After entering a state of celestial meditation, Yunsheng felt a warm magic energy enter her body. A memory that belonged to Crimson Lingyue was imprinted in his mind. Time reversal was a forbidden space-time spell in ancient times. It was an intermediate space-time spell. According to the user's magic power and the endurance of their magic soul, it could change the space-time pattern in a certain area. However, no matter how heaven-defying time reversal was, it could only happen in a certain area. Moreover, it had an actual effect. The longest it could last was 24 hours. After 24 hours, people who didn't belong to that space-time had to redraw the magic array and leave immediately. Otherwise, they would be stuck in that space-time forever. This was the crux of the time reversal spell. Yunsheng concluded that regardless of whether the time reversal spell was successful or not, there were a few key points that she had to pay attention to, especially to Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu. First, he could not leave the area where the time reversal spell was active. 2. No more than 24 hours. Both of them were devil incarnate characters. If there was no restraint, who knew what kind of trouble they would cause? You've already memorized all the essentials. Then start fusing with my Dharma soul. Consider this a gift from me to you. Fei Lingyue's voice echoed in his head. Yunsheng felt that her body was suddenly hot and cold. Peng Dash, the frost jade ice coffin, which was originally floating above the lotus pond, had already been opened. Suddenly the coffin closed. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu were both startled. The two of them flew forward wanting to see what was going on. The two of you don't panic. That's the imperial concubine helping Lord Yun fuse with her Dharma soul. The Taigen beast reminded them. The Dharma soul was the most important thing to a sorcerer. Fei Lingyue was already a talented sorcerer 500 years ago. Her magical power was much higher than the current Yun Shang, and even higher than Azura and the others. But because of the passage of time, part of her magical power had dissipated. After meeting Yun Shang, she had already decided that in order to make the time reversal spell more successful, she would give her last bit of Dharma soul power to Yun Shang. The frost jade ice coffin closed, isolating Yun Shang from the outside world. She felt as if she was soaking in a hot spring, warm and cozy. All the pores on her body opened, and strands of magic power entered her body and into her Dharma soul like hair. Yun Shang's 5-elemental Dharma soul greedily absorbed the magical power. Her magical power kept on increasing, from mid-level sky sorcerer to advanced level sky sorcerer. From advanced level sky sorcerer to advanced level sky sorcerer, she was trying to break through the bottleneck of the Saint Realm Guardian King. The originally silent frost jade ice coffin also started to shake slightly, as if there was an earthquake. The magical power in the frost jade ice coffin was extremely strong. The entire frost jade ice coffin was like the scorching summer sun, so bright that it was hard to open one's eyes. Oh no, it seems like I was too anxious and fused too much Dharma soul power. I don't know if her body can withstand so much magical power. Fei Lingyue was afraid that Yun Shang couldn't withstand the power of her Dharma soul. But after checking, she realized that there was another power in Yun Shang's body, and that power came from the bracelet on her arm. That bracelet looked very ordinary, and there was only one soul stone on it. But every time her body couldn't take it anymore, the bracelet would produce a power to repair her body. After about an hour, Yun Shang, who was still meditating, felt a crisp sound like glass shattering. Her Dharma soul emitted a 5-colored light. She suddenly opened her eyes, pushed open the frost jade ice coffin and sat up, wiping the sweat from her forehead. Yun Shang said in her heart, I finally broke through. Yun Shang had officially advanced from a sky sorcerer to a Saint Realm Guardian King. Yi Baiming and Du Guxiu, who were anxiously waiting by the side, couldn't hide the joy in their eyes when they saw Yun Shang's transformation. Yi Baiming thought to himself, little wildcat's talent is indeed extraordinary. She broke through in an hour. Du Guxiu's eyes were burning. Yun Shang's talent only made him yearn for it even more. Ignoring the love-struck gazes of the two men, Yun Shang jumped out of the ice coffin and pulled out her magic scepter. The three of you follow me into the magic array. Remember, no matter what happens next, you have to abide by 2 prerequisites. First, you can't leave the Taiyuan mountain area casually after returning to 500 years ago. Second, no matter what happens, you have to return to the Taiyuan castle after 24 hours. Otherwise, I won't be responsible for any consequences. Yun Shang's words made Du Guxiu and Yi Baiming's eyes darken. Yun Shang understood the two of them. These two men were blatantly ambitious. If there were no restrictions on them, once they returned to 500 years ago, they might just destroy the other country on a whim. Not to mention destroying the country, just killing the later Qin Emperor or Zhou State Emperor would directly affect the direction of history for the next 500 years. Don't worry, 500 years ago, you didn't exist on the Wuji continent. I have no interest in staying there. Yi Baiming smiled slyly. I'll be wherever my opponent is. 500 years ago, Du Guxiu also had a proud look on his face. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's go. Yun Shang moved the magic scepter in her hand. Chapter 827. Yun Shang had inherited not only part of Fei Lingyue's spiritual soul power, but also many kinds of magic that she had been proficient in when she was alive. As she was born in Penglai and married to the Prince of Taiyuan, who was a summoner, Fei Lingyue also had a lot of knowledge about summoners. Yun Shang benefited from all of this. Lord Yun, please take us with you. One more person means one more power. The two tiger lion beasts also hoped to help Yun Shang return to 500 years ago. Thinking that they had a better understanding of the situation in Taiyuan City, and the Prince of Taiyuan, Yun Shang decided to take them with her. However, Yun Shang still asked them to control their emotions when they returned to the past, even if they met their relatives or people from the Zhao state. The magic array was quickly drawn. With a flash of magic light, the 3 people and 2 beasts disappeared in a ray of magic light. At daybreak, the leaders of the 5 major factions, who had been anxiously waiting outside Taiyuan Castle for the entire night, noticed that Taiyuan Castle had finally stopped shaking. They immediately assigned their men and prepared to enter Taiyuan Castle to conduct a search and rescue operation. However, just as they were about to enter the castle, the Taiyuan Castle was suddenly enveloped by a ray of magic light. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't pass through the magic barrier. The entire Taiyuan city was completely isolated from them, under the effect of the magic barrier. What is going on? Even Rui couldn't see what the magic barrier was. This should be a type of forbidden magic. I can't break this magic array. It seems that we can only ask senior brother at the foot of the mountain to solve it. Rui shook his head. He immediately decided to go down the mountain to invite Xiaowanshu up. The others could only helplessly wait for Rui to return. Rui hurried down the mountain. On the way he saw a charred corpse. After identifying it, it was the corpse of the 3rd summoner of the Zao state. Although he didn't know why the 3rd summoner died here, Rui still hurried down the mountain with the corpse. Xiaowanshu, Elder Hellion, and the others were all shocked when they heard Rui talk about what had happened on Taiyuan Mountain in the past few days and nights. You said that Yunsheng and Baiming are trapped in the castle? What's going on? Is there any way to rescue him? Elder Hellion asked anxiously. These 2 were the top students of the continent's elite camp. If he lost the 2 of them in this mission, he didn't know how the elders of the 2 camps would reprimand him when he returned. He no longer had the face to return to the continent as an elite. Lu Tongtian and Chan Lianer's betrayal also made Elder Hellion very angry. We don't know the situation yet because a magic array suddenly appeared outside the castle. With just the few of us, we can't break through it. Senior brother, look. Rui carefully observed Xiaowanshu's reaction. When he heard that something had happened to Yunsheng, a crack appeared on Xiaowanshu's calm face. But the legend of the ruins of Taiyuan was another restriction. If senior brother rashly barged in, he didn't know if he would face the same fate as the 3rd summoner. The magic you mentioned should be an ancient forbidden magic, triggered by the people in the castle. That magic involves countless lives on Taiyuan Mountain. Even if I enter, I won't be able to change anything. It's a blessing, not a curse. The gears of history have already begun to reverse. Whether or not we can change the fate of Taiyuan is already something we can't control. Xiaowanshu sighed, his gaze long and sorrowful. Xiaowanshu said in his heart, Yunsheng, I hope that my magic tool can help you pass through this calamity. Because they had never experienced a time reversal magic array. The moment Yunsheng and the others stepped into the magic array, they couldn't help but feel uneasy. It was as if they were in a high-speed, empty boat without any magic barrier protecting them. Their vision blurred. Yunsheng's ears were filled with the sound of strong wind. Her body felt like it would be blown away at any time. While she was feeling uneasy, her right hand was suddenly grabbed by someone. She was very familiar with that hand. It was slender and strong. Under the index finger there was a callus. That was Yi Baiming's hand. Her uneasiness quietly disappeared. Yi Baiming's words were still ringing in her ears. I don't want to become the next prince of Taiyuan. The boundless world only had meaning because of Yunsheng. Her uneasiness slowly disappeared. The 2 of them held hands and relied on each other's warmth to face the unknown 500 years ago together. The light of the space-time magic array was weakening. This indicated that they were about to return to 500 years ago. Fei Lingyue and Yunsheng agreed to return to the night, when the Prince of Taiyuan returned from the Dutian Blood Beast world, and brought back the Qilin blood crystal. As long as they stopped the Prince of Taiyuan's mistake at that time, everything could be avoided. In front of the magic array there was already a bright light. After a while, they would return to the Taiyuan of 500 years ago. Just when Yunsheng saw the light of hope, Yunsheng's left arm suddenly had an extra hand. She was suddenly pulled away from Yi Baiming's hand. A huge wave of qi shattered the magic array. Yunsheng only felt that everything in front of her was in chaos. She was already pulled out of the magic array by that hand. As the magic array was forcefully disrupted at the end, Yunsheng had no choice but to stop the time reversal magic array. In front of her was a bright light. The light of the illumination magic array was a little dazzling. Yunsheng fell on the ground. but she didn't feel the pain she expected. Below her was a man's body. The moment she fell, Yun Sheng felt that she was protected by a pair of strong arms in front of her. When she fell out, the other party happened to be her human cushion. The pair of arms around her waist was very domineering. Yun Sheng recalled the scene in the magic array. Duguxiu, you are crazy. You actually did such a thing at such a crucial moment. Yun Sheng was furious. She shouldn't have trusted Duguxiu and let him enter the magic array together. This man was a madman. Beside her, there was no trace of Yi Baiming and the two tiger lion beasts. Duguxiu's interruption must have caused them to be separated. Yun Sheng was more worried about whether she would successfully return to the Taiyuan of 500 years ago, like what she and Fei Lengyue had planned. Time reversal magic was a very profound forbidden magic. Yun Sheng wasn't proficient in it. Under such circumstances and with Duguxiu's interruption, she didn't know what would happen. This damned man, he actually interrupted the time reversal magic array at the last moment. If by any chance, the man's complacent laughter rang in her ears. In the next moment, Yun Sheng only felt the world turn upside down. She was pressed under Duguxiu's body. Duguxiu firmly restrained her hands and feet, pressing her down. Yun Sheng, if you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too intimate with Yi Baiming. This prince is jealous. After saying that, his hot lips fell. Duguxiu's gaze was fiery as he stared at Yun Sheng and fiercely kissed her. Chapter 828. The City Lord is in the City Lord residence? Yun Sheng felt that something was amiss. The City Lord of Taiyuan should have just obtained the blood crystal and had yet to return to Taiyuan City. Or was there something wrong with the timing? Before leaving, Fei Lengyue and Yun Sheng had agreed that the space-time magic array would reverse the flow of time to 500 years ago, before the Prince of Taiyuan merged with the Kirin blood crystal. They had to stop the Prince of Taiyuan from going berserk. But according to the guards, the Prince of Taiyuan had returned a long time ago. Counting the days, he should have merged with the Kirin blood crystal. Damn it, it was too late. Yun Sheng immediately understood that Duguxiu must have interfered midway, causing the space-time magic array to malfunction. They had missed the best opportunity to stop the Prince of Taiyuan. That damn Duguxiu. Yun Sheng glared at Duguxiu fiercely, but the latter looked satisfied. Yun Sheng said that he was a bodyguard. Haha, then he would be her bodyguard. Yun Sheng suppressed the anger in her heart and looked around. Fortunately, Taiyuan City was still around. In this case, she still had a chance to stop the Prince of Taiyuan. But she didn't know where Night Fox was. Due to the malfunction of the magic array, she and Yi Baiming were separated. Even with the unicorn's binding magic, there was no reaction. Yi Baiming should be outside the range of the binding magic. Time was of the essence. Yun Sheng could only hope that Yi Baiming remembered their agreement before they set off and rushed to the Taiyuan castle as soon as possible to stop the Prince of Taiyuan and return to the boundless land 500 years later. Then I'll have to trouble this brother to bring us into the City Lord residence. Yun Sheng followed the guards and walked towards the Taiyuan castle. Duguxiu could only limp behind them. He felt a dull pain in his head, as if he had been hit by something heavy. Yi Baiming opened his eyes, his mind blank. There were a few chattering voices beside him. When they saw that Yi Baiming had woken up, the voices quieted down. He's awake, he's awake. Qianyang, that person is awake. Wow, this person is really good looking. Beneath him was a simple and crude bamboo bed. Beside the bed, there were a few peasant girls who were dressed in very simple clothing. One of them was about 15 or 16 years old. She was dressed in a blue floral dress. When she saw that Yi Baiming had woken up, her face flushed red. The peasant girl called Qianyang walked up carefully and asked softly, "You're awake? Is there anything wrong with your body? Where is this place?" Yi Baiming rubbed his temples and tried hard to recall. This is the fishing village at the foot of Taiyuan Mountain. My name is Qianyang. I met you this morning when I was picking up seashells at the beach. At that time you were unconscious. Qianyang was an ordinary girl from the fishing village. Every morning, she would go out to gather seafood. Early this morning, she saw a person stranded in the sea. She boldly went forward to check and found that it was a very good-looking young man. She asked a few villagers to carry him back to her house. The fishing village at the foot of Taiyuan Mountain? How could he be here? Yi Baiming's mind was completely blank. He could not remember anything from the past at once. Did you fall down and hurt your head? The doctor in the village said that you need to rest well for a few days. I've made porridge. Wait a moment, I'll bring it over for you. Qianyang blushed and stole a glance at Yi Baiming. This man was really good-looking. He was more good-looking than all the men in the village and even the noble mayor of Taiyuan Mountain. Qianyang was busy preparing the porridge and water. Yi Baiming's stomach was empty. He was indeed a little hungry. He stood up. Qiu's family's house was very simple and crude. His height made the entire house seem even smaller and smaller. He opened the window and smelled the salty sea breeze. What did he forget? He felt dizzy. After Qianyang made the porridge, she served it to Yi Baiming. After a few mouthfuls, Yi Baiming pushed the bowl away. Qianyang asked some questions about Yi Baiming's background. But Yi Baiming couldn't answer a single word. I'm sorry, Mississippi. I lost my memory. Yi Baiming shook his head and said apologetically, Your body is really good. I saved you in the morning. At that time there was a very deep scar on the back of your head. Looking at it now, it's almost healed. Qianyang remembered that when she first saved Yi Baiming, there was a very deep scar on the back of his head. Scar. Yi Baiming touched the back of his head and only felt a very shallow scar. It was almost healed. Who ambushed him? When Yi Baiming touched the scar, he became angry. Bang bang bang. Someone knocked on the door anxiously. Is there anyone? Come out quickly. Qianyang walked to the door and opened it. There were a few fierce-looking strangers standing outside. When they saw Qianyang, they pulled her out. Are you Qianyang? Is the village chief your father? Where is he? Qianyang rarely saw strangers in the fishing village. These people were rude and had weapons. Qianyang was too scared to move. What are you doing? Yi Baiming rushed out. There were several men and women standing outside the door. They were all in their 20s and 30s wearing strange clothes. Something flashed across Yi Baiming's mind when he saw those people's service. Although Yi Baiming had lost his memory, his cultivation was still there. His eyes were cold and his body was full of hostility. The men and women couldn't help but feel afraid. How dare you? Where did you come from? How dare you offend the summoner of the Zhao state? The men and women saw that the situation was not right and began to chant. The summoning circle flashed and a 4th-level white wolf, a 5th-level blue fox, and a 5th-level flame bird appeared. Seeing these magical beasts, Qianyang was so scared that she hid behind Yi Baiming. Summoner? The scar on the back of Yi Baiming's head twitched. The blank space in his mind was suddenly filled with fragments of memory. Yes, more than 500 years ago. He and Yun Shang returned to Taiyuan City from 500 years ago to find the Prince of Taiyuan and stop the Zhao state's conspiracy. When he and Yun Shang were about to return to 500 years ago, the magic circle was suddenly broken. Duguxiu. Yi Baiming remembered. At the last moment, he was attacked by a fierce fighting aura and separated from the little wild cat. Fortunately, he was not far from Taiyuan Mountain. He only lost his memory for a while. But why would the people of the Zhao state appear in the fishing village at this time? Seeing that Yi Baiming was silent, the summoners thought that he was afraid. One of the male summoners said arrogantly, Listen, the Emperor Zhao is going to enter the mountain. We need people to go up and prepare. Qianyang, quickly find your father. Although they were far away from Penglai, Qianyang had heard the names of the Zhao state and the Emperor Zhao. She was so scared that she shrank. Lords, my father went to sea to fish. He is not in the village. I will take you to the mountain, Yi Baiming suddenly said. On Monday, remember to vote for all kinds of monthly votes. The company is very busy at the end of the year. The update may not be fixed, but I will try my best to maintain the rhythm of the update and wait for the next round of updates. Chapter 829. Who are you? The Zhao state's people were on guard, and several magical beasts surrounded Yi Baiming. Yi Baiming's temperament did not fit in with the simple fisherman's village. Although he did not emit any fighting or magic energy waves, he gave off a sense of pressure just by standing there. Qiunyang hurriedly said. He's my husband. Qiunyang already had a good impression of Yi Baiming. Seeing him step forward bravely, she was both happy and worried. I'm Qiunyang's elder brother. And I'm a martial arts master at the martial arts school in the neighboring town. I'm very familiar with the mountain roads. Yi Baiming interrupted Qiunyang. Although Qiunyang was his savior, he did not want to have anything to do with other women. If Qiunyang or any of the other villagers led the way for these summoners, they would not be able to escape death. He saved her life to repay her kindness. Duguxiu had broken the space-time magic array at the last moment, which had disrupted Yunshang's original plan. Yi Baiming had already asked around. Today's date was half a year later than Yunshang's expected date. In this half a year, the Prince of Taiyuan had already merged with the Blood Crystal, and the Zhao State's minions had already infiltrated the Taiyuan Mountains. If he guessed correctly, in a day or two, Red Pope Ji Ruffing would cast the Purple Gold Beast Blood Curse on Taiyuan City. Yi Baiming wanted to see what these Zhao State summoners were going to do at this time. So he's a martial arts master. No wonder he looks so strong. A few of the summoners muttered, especially the female ones. They unconsciously looked at Yi Baiming a few more times, and their gazes were very ambiguous. Qiunyang was a little disappointed, but she still plucked up her courage. Big brother, you haven't been back to the village for a long time. I'm afraid you're not familiar with the mountain roads. I'll go with you. Yes, both of you will enter the mountain together. The summoners were still skeptical of Yi Baiming's words. Qiunyang was weak, and if there were any changes along the way, they could use Qiunyang as a hostage. A few summoners brought a few magical beasts and followed Yi Baiming and Qiunyang up the mountain. The Taiyuan Mountain of 500 years ago was very different from the Taiyuan Mountain of 500 years later. The Taiyuan Mountain of today was full of lush greenery. At the foot of Taiyuan Mountain, there were several guards of Taiyuan City. The summoners had already put away their magic beasts and changed their clothes. They were dressed like fishermen. Those guards also knew Qiunyang, so they just asked her a few questions. Qiunyang trembled in fear and said that these villagers were going up the mountain to cut firewood. The guards believed her and let them enter the mountain. The mountain road was very smooth, and the strong wind in the area between the sea and the sky had been greatly reduced by the mayor of Taiyuan City using a special magic array. There were no more forks in the mountain road. This is about the place. A few summoners in disguise stopped about 2,000 to 3,000 meters above sea level. The summoners immediately summoned their magic beasts and asked one of them to look after Yi Baiming and Qiunyang. They then took out some magic beast's blood and began to draw a magic array at several places on the mountain. Yi Baiming saw clearly that they were drawing a very special magic array with the blood of the beasts. When the magic array was drawn, the summoners were satisfied. It's finally done. The Emperor Zhao will be able to successfully cast the Purple Gold Beast Blood Curse tomorrow. That guy in Taiyuan is so reckless. He dared to plot a counterattack against the Zhao state. After tomorrow, there will be no more Taiyuan City in the world. The Purple Gold Beast Blood Curse was one of the strangest ancient prohibitions. It could turn living people into magic beasts. Yi Baiming realized that the purpose of the summoners from the Zhao state was to secretly set up a magic array in the mountain. Qiunyang didn't understand what they were talking about. She only knew that Yi Baiming's body emitted a bone-chilling coldness for a moment. But when the summoners returned, the coldness disappeared without a trace. You two don't tell anyone about what happened today. Otherwise, the whole fishing village will be buried with you. After the summoners finished setting up the magic array, they urged the two of them to go down the mountain. Yi Baiming pretended to be a yes man and agreed. When they reached the horizon, the summoners ordered Yi Baiming and Qiunyang to walk in front. After a few steps, a sudden gust of wind blew by. Qiunyang screamed and flew out. Yi Baiming tried to pull her back, but they both fell down the cliff. Behind them, a summoner had just finished chanting. Okay, it's all settled. We'll go up the mountain tomorrow. Haha, Taiyuan City, the city of ivory. There are countless treasures and rare magic beasts there. After the summoners killed the two of them, they hurriedly went down the mountain to find the guards, saying that someone fell down the mountain. In Taiyuan Castle, Yunshang and Duguxiu were led into the castle by the guards. There was still no sign of Yi Baiming. Yunshang was secretly anxious. In front of us is the breeding shed. The multi-headed magic beasts that the mayor is raising have been very strange recently. Dr. Yun, can you take a look and see if you can find the cause? There were many magic beasts in Taiyuan Castle. But these magic beasts have been very strange these days. They refused to eat normal food and even bit a few summoners who were raising them. Yun Shang checked and found nothing unusual. But she was keenly aware that there was something wrong with the magic array in the breeding shed. These magic arrays looked no different from usual. But if you looked carefully, you would find that these magic arrays had quietly changed. I'll prescribe some medicine. You mix it in the food of the magic beasts according to the pharmacy. It should take effect in about a day. Yun Shang took out some common herbs and used the excuse that she wanted to stay in the breeding shed for a while. The guards did not suspect anything and went to prepare the herbs. What? These magic arrays have been tampered with? As soon as the guards left, Yun Shang leaned over to check the magic arrays. Du Guxiu leaned to the side and looked around vigilantly. Now that Yi Baiming was not here, Yun Shang still needed Du Guxiu's help. She could only answer in a bad mood. These magic arrays have been modified. It looks more like a summoning array. These magic beasts should have been secretly controlled by a powerful magician. Du Guxiu already knew that Yun Shang was a summoner. It was just that he had never seen Yun Shang's magic beasts, so he did not know that Yun Shang was also an extremely powerful summoner. He did not know magic and did not know anything about summoners. He only knew that he had to protect Yun Shang during this period. But after watching from the side for a while, Du Guxiu found that he liked being alone with Yun Shang like this. Under the illumination of the magic array, Yun Shang's side profile looked even more charming. The two of them just stayed quietly, and he felt very at ease. Yun Shang did not know that Du Guxiu was beside her and was fantasizing. She fiddled with a few magic arrays for a while. Then there were a few more things that looked like magic crystals in her hand. Chapter 830. Yun Shang originally wanted to figure out the origins of these magic arrays and see if she could restore the magic arrays to their original state. However, she didn't expect to find a magic crystal the size of a finger in the core area of each magic array. Those crystals had clearly been buried not long ago, as they still had plenty of magic power. Yun Shang's memory was very good. Although she had only seen this kind of crystal once, it left a deep impression on her. When she was in the Winged Cloud Sea, the third main summoner had used this kind of heart crystal to control Hu Jiuxing. It's just a few broken stones. If you like them, this prince will give you hundreds or thousands of them when we return. Du Guxiu saw that Yun Shang's face was tense and her eyes were shining, so he came forward. If you don't know, then don't pretend to know. These aren't ordinary magic crystals. They're heart crystals. An inch of heart crystal is an inch of lamp. This kind of heart crystal can only be created by one of the 8 barren divine artifacts, the heart distress lamp. Yun Shang rolled her eyes at him. However, she didn't know that the anger in her eyes was boundless in Du Guxiu's eyes. Du Guxiu was very happy, as if he had gained something from being scolded. Du Guxiu had heard of the heart distress lamp before. Legend had it that the heart distress lamp had a mysterious power that could control consciousness and control living people and magical beasts like puppets. It was the most mysterious of the 8 barren divine artifacts. 500 years ago, the creation of heart crystals had already been banned. However, heart crystals had suddenly appeared in the breeding shed of Taiyuan's castle. There had to be something fishy going on. The heart crystal in Yunqing's hand still contained a surge of vigorous magic power. It could be seen that these heart crystals hadn't been created long ago. To be able to create a large number of heart crystals, this proved that the person who buried the heart crystals in the magic array definitely had the heart distress lamp. Hey, are these really heart crystals? Then our trip was really worth it. The halberd of the divine warrior and the heart distress lamp have both appeared. Du Guxiu was interested. He had long heard that the heart distress lamp had been missing for many years. In the continent of the future, no one knew the whereabouts of the heart distress lamp. Who would have thought that there would be news about the heart lantern in a Taiyuan castle 500 years ago? Don't celebrate too early. The halberd of the divine warrior is in the hands of the prince of Taiyuan. If I'm not mistaken, the lamp of sorrow is in the hands of the Zhao state. Right now, you and I are alone. Do you think we can win against Taiyuan City and Zhao State? Yunsheng was not so optimistic. If her guess was right, and the Heart Sorrow Lantern was really in the hands of the Zhao State, then it would be much more difficult to save Taiyuan City from this disaster. Whether or not I can win we'll know after we fight. Don't worry, this prince will bring you safely back 500 years in the future. Du Guxiu did not admit it, but he still felt a bit of regret in his heart. Whether he admitted it or not, as long as Yi Baiming was here, their chances of winning would be much higher. For the sake of momentary gratification, she had lost a great help like Yi Baiming. It was indeed not worth it. Yunsheng put away the heart crystal. The guard who went to prepare the medicine earlier came back with a maid. The two of you please take care of the breeding shed. The city lord has ordered that the two of you can stay in the city lord's mansion for the next few days. I have already prepared 2 living rooms for the two of you. The maid was the head maid of the city lord's mansion. After she arranged everything, she told Yunsheng and Du Guxiu that if they had nothing to do, they could walk around the Warcraft corridor in Taiyuan Garden. However, they were forbidden from entering the city lord's mansion, which was the deepest part of the castle. The sky gradually darkened. Beside the horizon, a silhouette climbed up the steep mountain wall like a gecko, climbing up a cliff that was several hundred feet high. Yi Baiming placed Qionyang on the side. The people of the Zhao State had already disappeared from the mountain path. He had expected that the people of the Zhao State would not let this matter rest. They would kill him to silence him. Therefore, when he passed by the horizon, he was already prepared. When Qionyang was pushed off the cliff, he was ready to attack. His fighting power transformed into wings. In order to make those summoners think that they had been buried under the cliff, Yi Baiming did not come up. He only flew up after confirming that everyone had left. Qionyang was so frightened that she fainted. Yi Baiming returned to the place where a few summoners had drawn the magic array earlier, and checked a few magic arrays. After a while, Qionyang woke up. Big brother Yi, what happened? Qionyang was in a daze. She only remembered that she was pushed hard and fell off the cliff. When she thought of this, Qionyang's face turned pale. Her body trembled like a sieve. Those people from the Zhao State wanted to kill her? Qionyang, it's over. Let's go back to the village first. Yi Baiming already had an idea. He and Qionyang returned to the fishing village under the cover of the night. But when they arrived at the fishing village, Qionyang collapsed on the ground. The fishing village was in ruins. The villagers' corpses were everywhere. All the houses in the fishing village were burned to ashes. Why did they do this? Qionyang was disheartened. She sobbed. On the sea, a fishing boat was docking. Several fishermen got off the boat. They were also frightened by the situation in the fishing village. One of them, a man in his 40s, saw Qionyang and rushed over. Qionyang, what happened? This man was the village chief. Father, the village was destroyed by the summoners from the Zhao State. Everyone in the village is dead. I was almost killed. Qionyang was crying so hard that she could not catch her breath. She told the village chief everything that happened during the day. Those bastards. The village chief's face was red with anger, but there was nothing he could do. They did not dare to tell the governor of Taiyuan. The Zhao State was so powerful that even the governor of Taiyuan was no match for them. Do you want to take revenge? Yi Baiming was a little regretful. He should have guessed that the Zhao State would attack the fishing village. It was a pity that so many innocent lives were lost. What's the use of crying? It's better to think of a way to make those summoners pay with their blood. Yi Baiming stopped looking at them with pity. He never sympathized with the weak. You? Who are you? Why do you want to help us? The village chief saw a strange man and pulled Qionyang back. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I can help you take revenge. If you want to deal with the Zhao State, you need to prepare these things first. Yi Baiming wrote a few words in the village chief's hand. The village chief looked at the words in his hand and hesitated. He thought for a while. In the end, his hatred for the Zhao State prevailed. Well, brother, we'll go prepare now. Tomorrow morning we'll go up the mountain with you. The village chief was ready to risk everything. He led a dozen fishermen to prepare the things Yi Baiming wanted. Qianyang was silently wiping her tears. Yi Baiming was looking at the Taiyuan mountain in the dark with his hands behind his back. On top of Taiyuan mountain, the white Taiyuan castle still shone with a moving luster under the cover of the night. Yunsheng, wait for me. I'll come to you immediately, Yi Baiming said in his heart. Chapter 831. In one of the rooms of the Taiyuan city lord's mansion, the light from the magic array was very gentle. Yunsheng sat up and wiped her forehead. Her hands were full of cold sweat. She woke up with a start. Just now Yunsheng had a dream. In her dream, she returned to the Taiyuan city 500 years in the future. She saw with her own eyes that the citizens were turned into magical beasts under the effect of the purple golden beast blood curse. They groaned in pain and were killed by countless summoners who descended from the sky. Taiyuan city at that time was like a living hell. The night was still long, but Yunsheng couldn't sleep. Even meditation was useless. Yunsheng thought for a while and decided to go out for a walk. It was already around midnight. The headmaid said that she could walk freely in the Magic Beast Corridor and Taiyuan Garden, except for the City Lord's mansion. The headmaid had already given her a token to enter the City Lord's mansion. She only needed to show the token to the guards on the way. 500 years ago, Taiyuan Garden didn't have those deadly poisonous plants and flowers. Yunsheng decided to go there for a walk. Taiyuan Garden was beautiful at night. Everything seemed so peaceful. But Yunsheng knew that in a day or two, the peace here would be broken. According to Fei Lengyue, the Zhao state would launch an attack on Taiyuan Castle and activate the purple golden beast blood curse on the 15th of this month. Today it was already the 14th. No, it was already the morning of the 15th. But everything in Taiyuan City was still so peaceful. In about 10 hours, the Zhao state will launch an attack. Yunsheng frowned. At this moment, a scream came from outside the garden. A guard covered his bloody arm and ran out from the other side of the city lord's mansion. As he ran, he shouted, "Help! Bad news! A magical beast broke into the city lord's mansion." That voice immediately alerted everyone in the city lord's mansion. The guards in the mansion rushed towards the city lord's palace like a fountain. Yunsheng followed the crowd and rushed towards the city lord hall. Outside the city lord's palace, a group of maids, including the head maid, and many guards surrounded the city lord's palace. Among them were two young generals. At this moment, they were locked in a fierce battle with a magical beast. "Don't go forward. That's a three-eyed Qilin." Yunsheng wanted to go forward to see what was going on, but she was stopped by Duguxiu, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion. Even Duguxiu, who had always been arrogant and conceited, had a solemn expression as he stared at the terrifying magical beast in the city lord's palace. It was a demonic beast the size of an adult bull. Its body was covered with purple scales that looked like armor plates. Its eyes were like two lanterns, flashing with a strange light. There was another eye on its forehead. The three-eyed Qilin was a king-tier magical beast. It possessed the terrifying strength of a bull. Once it opened its third eye, it could turn anything that approached it into stone. However, the three-eyed Qilin was a very rare magical beast. It had gone extinct long ago in the Eight Wastelands era. No one knew why it had suddenly appeared in the city lord's palace of Taiyuan. As they spoke, the three-eyed Qilin let out a furious roar. Its thick and strong limbs kicked violently, and it pounced on a guard. Everyone thought that the three-eyed Qilin would kill the guard. However, the three-eyed Qilin hesitated at this moment. It suddenly turned around and left the guard behind. Without looking back, it rushed into the city lord's palace. "Quick, stop it. Don't hurt the city lord." Seeing this, the guards all rushed into the city lord's palace. Yunsheng and Duguxiu followed them to the city lord's palace. In the inner hall of the city lord's palace, dozens of guards had already surrounded the three-eyed Qilin. The city lord is not inside. The head maid was terrified when she saw this. She thought that the three-eyed Qilin had hurt the city lord. "Kill that beast." The guards of the city lord's palace clamored. They either shot arrows or cast spells. All of a sudden everything came to a halt. When they regained their senses, The three-eyed Qilin was nowhere to be found. The city lord's palace was empty. Quick, find the city lord. The guards panicked and searched everywhere for the whereabouts of the city lord of Taiyuan. What they did not know was that somewhere in Taiyuan City, in a living room, a three-eyed Qilin angrily glared at a strange man and woman in front of it. Its four limbs had been sealed with a special needle technique, and it could not move for the time being. Why did you bring it back? Although Duguxiu's strength was astonishing, it was not easy to carry a Qilin that weighed 500 to 600 pounds and run all the way. Just now, in the city lord's palace, when the guards were attacking the three-eyed Qilin, Yunsheng suddenly cast a time-stop spell and asked Duguxiu to save the three-eyed purple Qilin immediately. Yunsheng did not answer directly. She leaned over and patted the Qilin's head. What should I call you? The city lord of Taiyuan or? Duguxiu and the three-eyed Qilin were both shocked. Roar! Enraged, the three-eyed Qilin bit back, almost biting Yunsheng's palm. A terrifying summoning power spread out from Yunsheng's body. What kind of pressure was that? Even the three-eyed Qilin, who was at the peak of the king stage, was suppressed by this aura and almost fell to the ground. How could it be? This was a terrifying power that only experts at the level of Emperor Zhao could have. The other party was only a woman, and she looked at most 15 or 16 years old. The three-eyed purple Qilin did not know that Yunsheng was using the power of the summoning demon hand. City Lord of Taiyuan, we are not your enemies, nor are we people of the Zhao state. I am your friend. It was the imperial concubine who asked us to save you. She used the time reversal spell to come from the Wuxia continent more than 500 years in the future to save you. Yunsheng's words made the three-eyed purple Qilin even more shocked. Let alone the city lord of Taiyuan, anyone who heard Yunsheng's words would think that she was crazy. The Wuxia continent more than 500 years in the future? The time reversal spell was such a profound forbidden spell. How could it be so easy to succeed? I know you don't believe me. Yunsheng took out a halberd and placed it in front of the three-eyed purple Qilin. The prince of Taiyuan was very familiar with that halberd. It was the halberd that he had placed in Fei Lingyue's coffin when she was buried. It was one of the dowries that Fei Lingyue had brought with her when she got married. After Fei Lingyue's death, he had sealed the halberd in the coffin. The underground palace was filled with traps, and outsiders could not enter at all. This woman had this halberd. Could it be that everything she said was true? You guys are really... How can it be? Isn't Lingyue dead? The three-eyed purple Qilin hesitated and spoke. Its voice was deep, but it was a man's voice. She didn't die. She was with you all this time. She knew that you had mistakenly merged with the Qilin blood crystal, and became like this. We wanted to go back in time half a year ago to stop you from merging with the Qilin blood crystal, but we were too late. Yunsheng took a deep breath and told the city lord of Taiyuan about the crisis that was about to face in Taiyuan Castle. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.